Good morning, Right Side Broadcasting Network viewers. I'm Matthew Alvarez.
And I'm Bobby McNeely. Pleasure to join you, Matthew, back in live Auburn, Alabama, the greatest place on earth.
Well, pretty great. And then also, he's wearing Auburn colors. I said you're wearing an Auburn tie today, but it's not Auburn. It's actually
War Eagle. Well, it's actually Illinois, my alma mater, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. We're getting back there with the football, but War Eagle for now.
Exactly. Great to see the game the other day here in Auburn, but more importantly, the Super Bowl of Super Bowls, the November 5th election, to enjoy, college football or to go to a movie or just have our freedoms and our rights continuing on forever, hopefully, here in this country with a win with Donald Trump.
No question. 2 months away. We are just over 60 days out, and President Trump saying, get those early votes in, get those banked, let's swamp the vote, too big to rig. Even mentioning on TikTok, on True Social, North Carolina, one of the first out the gates to do absentee balloting, and you can apply for that right now, so make a plan to vote.
A lot at stake, of course. Out of the 7 swing states, I added up all the electoral votes. We're talking 93 electoral votes.
Wow.
At stake for those 7 swing states. But, in North Carolina, if you want to talk about that real quick, President Trump won North Carolina in 16 and in 20. So I'm curious to see why they keep calling that a swing state when we've won so many times in that state.
No question, a larger uphill battle for the Democrats. What's interesting about North Carolina is that many people are moving there, and even in the rural areas. So we visited Asheville, Asheboro, Charlotte relatively recently, bringing you that great coverage of those rallies. But Democrats are moving into some of those blue areas, making them bluer. Some of the redder areas getting a bit redder. It's an interesting, very diverse state, and we'll see that be a major player. Also, the home of Laura Trump, our great RNC co-chair.
Exactly. So North Carolina at stake, of course, and then if we look at Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, a lot of big states at stake. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But of course, today's coverage is all about the 12 p.m. Speech by President Trump at the Economic Club of New York. So in New York City today, President Trump returning to his roots, being from Queens, going back there. It's a beautiful venue that they're going to be at today, Bobby.
Very exciting to see him talk on the economy. That's really the forefront of this election. And President Trump posting several videos last night via True Social regarding what is this election all about. And really at the top, illegal immigration and its effect on the economy. Cost of living skyrocketing for many Americans, regardless of economic background. And President Trump will give a strong, solid economic policy speech to, really the players that are in the midst of so many things, whether it be Wall Street all the way to Main Street, going to his hometown to make the case as why he should be the 47th president of the United States.
So we're replacing Bidenomics and Bidenflation with MAGAnomics. That's the economic plan coming up. We're going to dive more into that in a little bit. And Bobby, I looked at the 20 GOP promises the other day. Do you know 8 or at least 9 out of 20 have to do with financial means, the dollar, and the economy? Can you believe it?
Right. It's common sense. It harkens back to 1992, Bill Clinton versus George H.W. Bush, then President Bush 41, and James Carville, who ran the campaign successfully for Bill Clinton. It's the economy, stupid. This is really what we're getting back to. People vote their wallet, and when things are more difficult at the pump or when getting groceries, those basic things you need to survive, people will be moved to do that not only with their feet in actually moving as they've had to other states, but actually going to the polls and voting what's happening in their pocketbook.
And then if you look at number 7 out of the GOP platform, defending our Constitution, there's so many big elements that those 20 promises have for we the people. This is all about we the people, all about this country, the citizens of this nation, of course, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So 12 o'clock today, once again, in New York City, we'll have a live split screen once our cameras have access to that room there. We're going to dive into what it's like under the Biden-Harris administration with all of the pricing as well, Bobby. But before we move on, there's a pretty cool item that if you buy their product, you get this. This is a free silver coin. So this is Birch Gold Group. And you see that free fight silver coin on your screen there. All you have to do is text Trump to 989898, and you can also get this coin if you buy one of their products. Always good to do.
Very smart to do in these uncertain economic times. Of course, the United States moved off the gold standard and moved to petrodollars trading with Saudi Arabia. That foreign policy has all changed. That was the hallmark of world foreign policy. Petrodollars were dominating the world economic stage. No longer Saudi Arabia turning to places like Brazil, China, India, these BRICS nations that don't necessarily have the dollar interest at heart. So text Trump to 989898. And of course, you have a chance at this beautiful free fight silver coin. I love that the date's on top of July 13th, 2024, the attempted assassination, also fight, and our beautiful White House on the back of that coin. And it's relatively heavy for a nice silver piece.
Yeah, it definitely is. A very, very nice product here. You have to get a product at Birch Gold Group, and then you'll get this for free. So pretty awesome stuff with Birch Gold Group. Of course, a great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Well, we just got off of Labor Day weekend, and here we are back into the work week. I know it is Wednesday at this point, or actually Thursday. But a lot of news going on, of course. The 24/7 news cycle doesn't stop for a holiday, as we know. We've seen a lot. We've heard a lot. President Trump in Harrisburg, PA last night. That was quite the audience there.
Right. Very exciting. He looked very lighthearted. Of course, good friends with Sean Hannity of Fox News, someone who has pressed him at times. And even I was at an event yesterday where someone reminded us that Sean Hannity wasn't always on the Trump train. He actually pressed him very hard in 2015, 2016, and actually comes out with some strong questions there. But President Trump, as always, prepared, ready to go, looking lighthearted, looking really well rested as well. So I'm sure doing a lot of debate prep and getting ready for next week's crucial debate against Vice President Kamala Harris.
Exactly, and we're 5 days away from that on Tuesday in Philadelphia. Only about half a mile from the General Assembly room at Independence Hall will be that debate. We know President Trump is the GOAT of debates. He's just going to be himself, and he already has the knowledge and already has the heart for the country. So I don't know how Harris is even going to hold up.
Well, it's a great point, Matthew, because I actually was fortunate enough to watch Reagan, the movie with Dennis Quaid. Highly recommend go and see it at your local theater. But that was on Monday. There's a moment where he's debate prepping. You can actually over-prepare for these things. If you're just pushing the numbers and getting too much locked into your head, and you have to role play these scenarios to as much prepare. But President Trump has that gut instinct and has a great way of knowing how to react to not only his opponent, but the multiple things that are going on that debate stage. And unfortunately, it is fake news ABC. They're probably going to be coming at him and probably will be unfair to him, most likely. So very interested to see how that debate will go.
It's hard not to think about some of the jokes that President Trump talks about with George Stephanopoulos. He says he has it up to here with him. I'm sorry, but that's hilarious. But at the end of the day, a huge debate, of course, there on Fake News ABC on Tuesday. We're seeing that live shot there in New York City. Of course, President Trump to speak around 12 o'clock there in the Big Apple. I'm Matthew Alvarez alongside Bobby McNeely. And Bobby, you just said on Monday you saw Reagan. Well, guess what? I saw Reagan on Monday as well.
How did we not talk about this earlier?
Yeah, we haven't talked about it. So it was, Labor Day, and checked out the movie. And like you said, and like you guys saw on my Truth Social at Matthew Alvarez, I posted something right after the movie. People were clapping at the end of the movie. There were a couple college students to our left that were crying. One broke down in tears. It was a very, very powerful movie. And of course, it goes back to things like communism versus freedom. Once again, it's some of the same stuff we're dealing with now, but worse, of course, because you have socialism, communism, and then there's technocratic governments. That's for maybe another day. But the point is, we've got all this going on to just control the people and take freedoms away from the American people and the world.
Right. And that's the thing about this movie. You can really draw something from that. For me personally, it was seeing Reagan's relationship with his mother, Nellie, something I feel very similar to my mom, very close to her, and someone I can confide in. I didn't realize how in his mid-40s, there was that struggle being in Hollywood, taking on the communists at that time, which this film really highlights. But at the same time, he was falling to the wayside in his entertainment career and really didn't know where to turn before meeting his wife, Nancy Davis, who came for a meeting because she was blacklisted. And I thought about how you could parallel that to today with being canceled on big tech, or how you might be condemned wrongfully, and how important our Constitution is, our Bill of Rights, and how our forefathers knew what they were doing because of issues that may prop up in culture and society. This movie will definitely inspire you, and you can take tiny pieces of it and relate it to modern day, especially the fight against communism.
Speaking of modern day, looking forward to 2028 and the movie Trump to a theater near you, right? I mean, how awesome would that movie be? I mean, the amount of successes under President Trump and the amount of attacks that he has taken on, and then we still have to see what the storybook will look like coming up here in November. But what a movie that'll be!
Oh, it'll be a fantastic document for world history. President Trump, President Ronald Reagan, very similar in the sense that they were outsiders, very successful in private business, in other projects that they did outside of government, and bringing common sense to Washington, D.C., to a deep state swamp in the bureaucracy, and taking literally a sledgehammer to it, whether it be the 1980s or whether now in the 2020s and the late 2010s. President Trump is the man for the job, and I'm sure he's going to explain why today, giving a thorough speech to the Economic Club of New York.
And a lot of humor, of course, with Ronald Reagan and, of course, as we know, the GOAT, President Trump. So moving forward, I was saying that there's going to be a movie, Trump in 2028. Do I know that there will be? No, but I'm pitching it to those of you that are out there. I mean, Dennis Quaid and John Voight, both Trump supporters, starred in Reagan. Let's see if we can get some people out there to try that for 28. But
I love that.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, of course, seeing that movie was inspiring for many. I also saw the movie, Is It City of Dreams? It's a new movie out about human trafficking and the 325,000 missing children in this country due to cartels and the southern border and sweatshops and all that terrible stuff going on out there. So I saw that movie as well. Also inspiring, but also you don't want to just be inspired. You want to talk about it, just as I did right here on this network.
And film moves us to action. Social media moves us to action. And 325,000 children that we know of gone because of an open southern border. This is due to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's lack of action. Actually, their irresponsible reversing of the Trump policies. President Trump said it himself. If they had simply not touched anything on the border, everything would have been hunky-dory because of what they had created. President Trump gave Border Patrol what was needed. He built up the military. They were building and almost complete with a wonderful wall. And a lot of that wall halted sitting on the ground along the southern United States. It's an absolute travesty, and that's the sad thing about these policies. You are electing a group of policies, not just a person. And it's so important to remember that because your vote has implications in so many lives. And I think that's the tragedy of the last 4 years, the unnecessary amount of death. And we saw that too with 6 hostages in Gaza. The Israeli military was coming for them, one an American citizen, executed by Hamas. This is all because of the weakness of the Biden-Harris administration.
100%. And back to the southern border there, our correspondent, Mike Fortin was there just last week in Cochise County, live on the border, and we actually saw the wall parts that were not installed, that were part of President Trump's wall. He has the job to finish being elected, of course, but you could tell this is what they want, the left. They want they want chaos, they have weakness. We see the playbook now.
It's very clear, and again, even in the time of, if you go back to Reagan, the film, there's that moment with him and Tip O'Neill, at 6 o'clock, we're just 2 Irishmen. And it was really an enjoyable, funny line from Dennis Quaid playing President Ronald Reagan. But there clearly was this belief in America between the two men, things that they could come together on, being a Boston Democrat, a California Republican. But at the end of the day, they loved America. I can't say the same about these far left communists. And it really, I think we do a disservice if they're called liberals or progressives, because they're truly not liberal, nor are they really progressive. They are full communists at this point. If you look at their policies or lack of any platform on Kamala Harris's website, all they want to do is stoke fear, fire, and chaos, and we've seen that in the last 4 years.
One of the other lines from the Reagan movie, some of the Hollywood producers were asking Dennis Quaid, who was playing Ronald Reagan, obviously well before him being the president, they asked him, well, you got to pick a side. And there you go. So you saw the side that Ronald Reagan picked, peace through strength, make America great again. And now we have the greatest president of all time, President Donald Trump, who has really shown everyone about what fake news is all about. The deep state, draining the swamp, building the wall, all of the economic policies you're going to hear today. Now, some of you might be surprised that we're, on TV riffing here talking about these issues, communism versus freedom, but that is exactly what is on the ballot. We are in conservative media. We believe in this country. We believe in President Trump's 20 promises to the American people. And so that's why we have the courage to say, you know what, let's be a voice for some of you out there that might not have that voice. We're here for you with We the People.
Absolutely. I was even listening to a podcast earlier today, and it was talking about how the mainstream media, things like the New York Times or fake news ABC, won't even cover the fact that there have been several ceasefire proposals from the Israeli government, from the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, towards Hamas, towards Hezbollah, and the conflict currently going on. They don't want to cover that. So we're so blessed at RSBN to bring you the facts, bring you the truth, and ultimately let you, the viewers, decide. And if you happen to be a registered Democrat watching this, we welcome you. We're happy you're here, because when we talk about what's going on with the communist ticket, it's truly the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy. At the end of the day, Matthew and I have the privilege, along with our other correspondents, to go and talk to the American people. That's the highlight of what we do at RSBN, especially during those rallies. Go and talk to the people at the Trump rallies before they go in. And at the end of the day, Republican and Democrat, there's not so much difference in the American voter. It's what do you want to do with your life, and can you do it better than the government tells you to do it? And quite frankly, the cost of living is just out of control in this country. And President Trump has a platform right here, 20 promises that will make you the power broker instead of a large, bloated federal bureaucracy.
Exactly. So let's look at the problem, and then let's look at the solution. So the problem is, under Harris and Biden, the car insurance is up 54%, hotels up 51%, electricity up 31.7%, airfare up 22%, rent up 22%, groceries up 21%. So we see right there, our wallets are hemorrhaging money.
Right. Oh, no question about that. And I mentioned before that I like to go to Costco for my gas, just a little bit more inexpensive and a little bit more cost effective. And I saw a gentleman just filling up his truck, just shaking his head looking at it. And it's really sad to see what's going on right now, especially if you have a young family and you're trying to make your way through a career, through life, and it has definitely gotten expensive for everyone. So be patient with folks, be involved in church, get out there, be with your community, make an extended family happen in your neighborhood, and be good to each other. In 2 short months, we're about to make America great again.
Exactly. So about 60 some odd days until the election. Let's thank one of our sponsors before we continue on with the solution to the problems we just talked about with the Bidenomics. We'll be going to Maganomics here in a second with that 20 GOP promises. The Wellness Company, always great to have a wellness kit with you. It's makecaregreatagain.com, and they're back here. Here's one of them. This is the medical emergency kit and the contagion emergency kit. So these kits right here can get mailed right to your house or your workplace. There's ivermectin, there's amoxicillin, a Z-Pack. Always good to have something like this on standby.
No question. There's 8 different medications, all produced and made by Dr. Peter McCullough. He's a great man. He's been canceled for finding the truth on these diseases. He's an expert at the mRNA research, a huge critic of Dr. Fear, Dr. Fauci. And this gentleman creating a great company to keep you safe, and they're so durable, they're so lightweight. You can have it in your backpack, on a camping trip, have one in the pantry. Make sure you have these because there is a summit coming up, the bird flu summit coming in October. And one of the first topics that's foreshadowed in this organized agenda is mass fatality management planning. If that doesn't send chills down your spine, I don't know what does. We know what happened in 2020, 2021 with the COVID pandemic. So be prepared for anything as we approach such a vital election.
A lot of discussion about Mpox as well with the World Health Organization. So whatever the case is, get this case right here, the medical emergency kit. MakeCareGreatAgain.com. Use that promo code for 15% off. It's RSBN. RSBN is the promo code. All right, let's talk about some of those GOP promises that the solution to the Bidenomics issue, right? So number 3 out of the 20 is end inflation and make America affordable again. So how about make America the dominant energy producer in the world by far? Large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips, on and on and on. That's just 3 of about 8 or 9 in there. Obviously, the economy, a major, I was going to say selling point, but it's not really a selling point. It's what we need. We need to have dollars in our pockets. We need to be able to pay rent, eat food, put gas in the car, and continue on as Americans.
So we can all reach that American dream and do the things we want to do. And it's very similar to the time of Reagan versus Carter. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And inflation at that time had skyrocketed, maybe the highest it was percentage-wise in American history. We're very close to that right now. So a very similar election to 1980 as what we're seeing now in 2024. We don't have a problem with inflation based on how much we are taxing people. We have a problem with inflation because of how much we're spending. It's Keynesian economics brought on by Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and now will be, a 4th Obama term, God forbid, if Kamala Harris is elected president of the United States. And President Reagan showed us that if you deregulate and you give more money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans, they will stimulate the economy. They will go and spend more. President Trump showed that as well. One of my favorite policies he had was, in his first term, for every new federal regulation, you had to get rid of 2. It was a great way of going after an archaic system.
Continuing on, number 13, keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Number 14, fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. It goes on and on and on when it comes to this GOP platform, including number 20, unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. So we know that the economy is one huge part of this presidency that President Trump would have as a 47th commander-in-chief. Another one, shifting over to number 7, is defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. Number 7, my favorite, of course, because it has to do with everything to do with our founding document that was written up, drawn up, and approved in that assembly room in Philadelphia in Independence Hall.
And that Bill of Rights, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists argued if there should be a Bill of Rights. And clearly the Anti-Federalists, thank God they won out that day, because those top 10 first rights, those Bill of Rights that were produced, one protects another and are a direct result of what they had faced from the English crown. So, history reflects itself, and it is a lot of common sense that's simply in this platform. I just checked again, KamalaHarris.com. There is no platform. It's just meet Kamala Harris, meet Tim Walz, take action, and the store.
Well, let's talk about Ms. Harris real quick. Carly Bonet on Truth Social called her Hide-in Headphones Harris. I kind of like Hide-in Headphones. That's a good nickname, Hide-in Headphones. If you guys saw her getting on the Air Force 2 the other day, and she had her headphones in, pretending to be on a call or listening to music, as the current so-called vice president, walking up the steps into that airplane, ignoring, mostly it was fake news press anyway, so I don't care what they're saying, but the point is, if you're ignoring the press, that means you're ignoring the American people as well, because usually the press does have the ability to share with the American people what politicians are saying. But I'm glad there's conservative media now, because there's really no filter. We're really just, we're hungry for the truth and we want to share it. Isn't that interesting? She put the headphones in. Did you see that video by chance?
I did, and it's really remarkable, because what I miss about, probably most about the Trump administration, is by the time I would wake up at even 5, 6 in the morning, President Trump was probably already on the phone with someone having an interview on the early morning shows. He would almost always come out to the White House press pool. I got to see it myself when I visited a college roommate and dear friend who was working at the White House. Got to see Marine One pick up President Trump, and that was quite an experience. Happened to be the second time that Robert Mueller was actually testifying on Capitol Hill, so things were behind that day, and he came out of the Oval and spoke to them for 45 minutes. And he made Marine One wait for that, and I thought, oh my goodness, I have to go back and watch this playback, because that's how he would communicate so quickly and so fast with the American people in real time. And he was so sharp at using the media in that regard. And I look forward to those days again when we really knew what our commander-in-chief was thinking.
Exactly. And I like how he, similarly to Kari Lake, pushed back. You know, no matter what kind of question or what kind of angle, especially when you'd hear the microphone be picked up by what the reporter was saying, whether it's in the East Room at the White House, whether it's outside on the lawn, you can hear the question and you know already this person's way slanted, way left, and asking, just trying to get gotcha questions. But there's no gotcha when it comes to false narratives. You know, if you're lying in your question, how is there a gotcha? It's not even, you're revealing who you are at that point. So I remember that back and forth with Jim Acosta. Remember when he was telling Jim, sit down, Jim, sit down. It was just such a great moment. It's fun to watch some of the old videos on Rumble and YouTube out there.
Well, and it's real. This is a person who speaks from his heart, who has come in here to blow up a system that truly was working against the American people. President Trump pulled back that curtain, and he will do it again. And for the second term, he knows how to do it bigger and better than ever, given now that he has a track record. He has been president, and rarely do you have an opportunity in a presidential election to look at two people who have such closeness with the job. You know, one being Vice President Kamala Harris. She is technically the greatest advisor to President Joe Biden, being his running mate. She has failed at that job. She's failed at being his self-appointed border czar. You have President Trump, who has a clear track record of making America great again, making promises, keeping those promises, and not backing down against a huge big tech oligarch, big media, people who want to take these issues down because they want to make money and they're against the American people at the end of the day.
Speaking of against the American people, I was watching Harris's speech in New Hampshire yesterday in front of maybe 80, 100 people. And you can tell just even some of the passion, so-called passion, it just is forced. It's not,
right.
You know, it's just a more of a religion for a lot of the people. Mm-hmm. But the point is, the motto, the campaign motto, it looks like over there, is a new way forward. And the majority of the American people, I can tell you after we've interviewed so many people, mm-hmm. we want a common sense way forward, right? We want the constitutional way forward, not a new way forward. We want, they're just trying to drum up, build back better again. You know, it's just another motto that is just going to fall flat on the left.
Well, and how many times we have the privilege of speaking with people who said, I'm not engaged. I wasn't engaged several years ago, but President Trump's policies brought me to the table. I saw how things were wrong in my career, in my community, and I thought, wow, I have to get involved some way, somehow. And that's what I see enshrined by this platform, these 20 promises. I see it as a second contract with America, just as Speaker Gingrich did in 1994 through the legislative branch in Congress. Now President Trump making these 20 pledges, these 20 promises known as Agenda 47 to make our country great once again.
Exactly. So those 20 promises, as we started the broadcast with, as we know that there are tons of problems out there, well, we need solutions, and we see the solutions through President Trump. And of course today, as you see there, 12 o'clock Eastern time in the Big Apple, New York City. I was looking at the population the other day. just to refresh my memory, and the whole metro area when it comes to Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, Long Island, the whole region, 20 million people live in that area. That's just wild.
It's remarkable. And if you can make it anywhere, you can make it in the Big Apple. And that is President Trump's home. And I think really the expertise and experience he got being a builder there, taking on people like Mayor Ed Koch and others in the New York bureaucracy that really gave him the wherewithal to withstand Washington, D.C. politics and the big leagues, otherwise known as the American presidency.
Exactly. So we're looking for the 47th Commander-in-Chief, and we know that a majority of this country, through polling, through boots on the ground, through common sense, wants President Trump in. Think about it. 2016, when he won, all of those swing states went in favor of President Trump. Somehow in 2020, every one of those states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, they so-called went to the other side. 81 million votes. We know what happened. But the point is, now we're in 2024. This United States is overwhelmingly, in my opinion, red. We want our country back. That's making America great again. That's what I believe to be true. And I know a lot of you agree with me out there, and I believe you do too.
No question about it. I am 110% MAGA. And that's what's funny too about going back to Ronald Reagan or even Bill Clinton. They said, let's make America great again. Was not controversial then, was very patriotic in both campaigns, both Republican and Democrat. And I always get a chuckle when I hear from the far left how controversial that somehow is.
Yeah,
it's really
it's wild.
funny.
And again, this isn't against all Democratic people in this country. It's more about the leadership that is wanting to take the country so far left and bring in censorship and bring in more of a Venezuelan style of government where, Maduro, they stole that election in Venezuela. They stole the election in Brazil. Jair Bolsonaro should be the president of that country, and on and on and on. We see that happening. So we don't want it to be like the UK that right now with censorship in this country. If you guys look at any of the global, foreign policies and current events out there, this is really that serious of an election. This is really that big of a fork in the road, Bobby, that we're facing.
Well, I had the privilege of speaking with Philip Patrick last week of Birch Gold Group, one of our wonderful sponsors. And we really talked about how inflation is affecting everyone and how not preparing yourself for this economic downturn. President Trump is trying to prevent not only a Great Recession, but a deep, dark depression. We're talking levels going back to 1929 and the precursor to the Great Depression, which left millions hungry, which gutted our middle class really until World War II happened. And sadly, because of the innovation of technology throughout that conflict, people were starving. They were in lines for bread and soup, barely getting their fair share. And we don't want that to repeat itself. And that's another good reason why it's important to prepare in many ways. Have the gold and silver from a great group like Birch. Have your Second Amendment rights exercised. Definitely have non-perishables, water. Be prepared for anything cataclysmic because we don't want to scare anyone, of course, but the more experts we talk to and the more facts we bring to you at home, the great MAGA patriots watching RSBN, we just want you to be prepared for anything because sadly, one group wants to completely dismantle this great country.
Exactly, and that's what they're trying to push forward. So that's what we see that is in front of us right now. Back to what we were talking about before, as we called Kamala Harris hide in headphones. If you remember, she was walking up the steps of Air Force Two, ignoring the press there, hide in headphones. Paul Ingrassio's Substack that President Trump actually retweeted the other day. Paul said, quote, Democrats by now have learned that the less time they keep her in public sight, the better it is for their national effort. That from Paul Ingrassia. So that's the game plan. They're doing the same thing they did with it was Biden in the basement and COVID. Now it's just kind of like, Walz is doing the same thing, not answering any questions, whether it's a left-wing reporter, mainstream, whether I don't know how many right-wing conservative media people have asked questions to Walz and Harris, but they're ignoring the press altogether, which is also ignoring the American people.
And just for the record, they're welcome anytime to speak with us. We'd love to speak with Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Walz on their plans. They've only done one interview, and that was with CNN's Dana Bash, the two of them together for 16 minutes. The Trump-Vance team, President Trump, Senator Vance, 35 interviews in that time. So it just shows you a difference.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were just talking about the CNN interview, it was more like a snooze fest. It was just boring. There wasn't anything good about it. It was just, and also just talking about some Democrat talking points or general talking points, like, being there for the American people and the middle class and all that. Well, that's something we've heard for years. The point is, we know what your actions will speak louder than the words. We know that this is something that is more of a way left progressive agenda, more than caring about the middle class. So kind of everybody's seeing through that at this point. FreeTrumpBook.com, another great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. As you see there on your screen, that is the kid's guide to President Trump and his successes in his first term. And hopefully there'll be the second book coming up for the second term. But Bobby, it's FreeTrumpBook.com.
And I like all the different chapters and topics. You have what indoctrination is and how you can combat that from your school to the media. Who is President Trump? What is he working on? Why does he want a second term? And this guide is so important because it explains President Trump's record. And not only is it really just great for kids, but I think you could give it to maybe those neighbors who are, those soft R's, soft D's, not really involved in the process, perhaps independent. That's what's so interesting about right now. Matthew and I are big media consumers, and also being news anchors and reporters, we like to know what's going on, but like the great patriots at you at home, your neighbors might not be paying attention to what's happening in this crucial election. But it's also not surprising to learn that crime and drugs, as we spoke earlier, are pouring through our southern border. And this FreeTrumpBook.com will help our newest voters understand that and how to handle it when they come of age to take over the reins of this great country. Just think about what happened at the University of Georgia back in February. Laken Riley, a beautiful young woman, 22, jogging just outside of the campus in Athens, Georgia, a very well-populated area. A Venezuelan illegal alien murdered her. This guy had a rap sheet longer than most. He was released by New York DAs and prosecutors, made his way down to Georgia, and that will be an empty seat at Thanksgiving and Christmas because of the horrific actions of a monster. That's why it's important to inform people on the true policies of President Trump, especially kids. So FreeTrumpBook.com. Make sure that people know the truth out there, not just the fake news narrative and spin.
Exactly. So learning about the indoctrination that some of the schools out there across the country are trying to pour into the youth's minds. So always good. FreeTrumpBook.com, and also Right Side Broadcasting Network. Why not, right? I mean, some great conservative media out there. Truth Social's awesome. And it's great to be a part of a lot of what's going on out there when it comes to being on all of these platforms. Right Side's on anything from Truth Social to X to Facebook. You can follow us on our website, on our app, and of course on Rumble and YouTube. So a lot of places to watch us. Of course, last week we were in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Remember about the Trump towel that I had out there.
I enjoyed that.
The yellow and the red one.
Did you get me one by chance?
I didn't, because this is why. Because Titus Ellis Smith, shout out if he's watching, but he was there with me, and he was trying to get the crowd to get excited and loud with the one red towel, and it kind of worked. And I'm like, well, let me try. And he already gave that one towel away, so I had the other towel that I was going to bring back, but I gave that one away too. So. We'll have to get another one ordered there in Pittsburgh.
The crowd was very excited when the both of you brought those towels, and I got a real kick out of that. So that was a big shout out to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and to the great people you interviewed. There was someone from Colorado who made the trip, and then someone recognized you from your time in local news up in Pennsylvania. So that was really neat.
Yeah, definitely. Worked around the country in mainstream media, but it's. Sometimes when the stars align, they align, and that's right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Also, we interviewed somebody from Oregon. She was very passionate. So happy to be in Pennsylvania, so happy to see President Trump, and what a fun speech that was too. Great energy, but outside of all of the entertainment and the greatness of it, the actual content of what we're facing was spoken about, and what is needed to happen is shared. So he's got that 1-2 punch, figuratively speaking, with some fun, but then here's truth.
Right, and I thought Mark Koski was probably one of the best speakers leading up to it, and then President Trump brought him back on, of course, an energy worker working in fracking, oil and gas, and articulately stating that we have to protect Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, traditional Appalachia that needs these jobs. They are the experts, and it was great to see so many hard hats and the strong, broad shoulders of America. These people, I mean, we rely on them so heavily, and they're so great at what they do. It's a wonderful trade, and they're passionate about their work, and they're passionate about taking care of their families. And Mark's speech was very moving, so much so the president brought him back on stage.
Exactly right. And so if you're just joining us now, Matthew Alvarez alongside Bobby McNeely here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. President Trump, as you see there on the screen, will speak around 12 Eastern Time in New York City at the Economic Club of New York. So today, economy-heavy speech. Some other stories going on in the 24/7 news cycle, of course, that school shooting in Georgia. Our hearts and prayers, of course, with the families there. A very tragic event. President Trump actually posted on Truth Social, quote, "Our hearts are with the victims and loved ones of those affected by the tragic event in Winder, Georgia. These cherished children were taken from us far too soon by a sick and deranged monster," end quote. Then we shift over to Aurora, Colorado and Chicago, Illinois, talking about the migrant gangs, the Venezuelan gangs that we've seen. I know you reposted something on Truth Social as well, Bobby, about that when it comes to Chicago. Can you believe that? Oh, and Charlie Kirk as well, talking about where's the National Guard in this situation? We've got actual gangs, as you guys saw that video, going from door to door in some of these apartment complexes. That is just not going to fly under President Trump.
And that's the fear of who has come over this southern border. Is it the Chinese Communist Party, spies? Clearly we have MS-13 here. We're coming up to the anniversary of 9/11. Is Al-Qaeda in our country? Or are there affiliates, ISIS, for example? It's a scary thought, and that's why we have to protect each other, watch out for our neighbors, be aware of what's going on in your community, because Aurora, Colorado, a beautiful suburb of the Denver area, and they're clearly being overrun. Chicago not handling it. Law enforcement hands tied. Mayor Brandon Johnson clearly not doing anything. And actually, it was, I believe, Savannah from, was it Rav or Frontline?
Frontline, Savannah
Hernandez doing some extraordinary work, actually uncovering what's happening in some of these Venezuelan gang MS-13 apartment holdouts and areas where they're living, and just what they're doing to some of these communities. It's disgusting.
It is. It's terrible. And the other day, there were no events going on. There was some news cycle things happening. I decided as a journalist, right? I called Aurora, Colorado. I called businesses there. I called a gun shop. I just wanted to get a feel, genuinely, just personally. But it is journalistic work, right? So I call one of the gun shops, and the manager on the phone, actually it was an employee that picked up first, and I said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And he shared with me that there's a 200% increase in people buying firearms at that store in Aurora, Colorado. He said people that don't have guns usually, they're coming in buying 2 or 3 of them, he told me. I asked him if I could record his voice on there. He said yes. So I got that all documented, but I'm just reporting to you right now that people are concerned in Aurora, Colorado. They're buying firearms because of what's happening out there, and in Chicago probably as well. I know the gun laws are a little bit different there, but I'll tell you, man, I mean, seeing what's happening with these gangs, it reminds me of when President Trump said, "Hey, listen, the gas prices are going to go up if Biden takes over." The gas prices went up, right? Then you hear President Trump talking about, "Hey, if the migrants are coming in, this crime and this is what's going to happen. They're not letting us have their best people," right? Well, it's happening just like President Trump said.
And now President Trump's words seeming fairly prophetic from when he had left office and even late into the 2020 campaign, but it was simply from having done the job and seeing the contrasts and policies between him and then the former Vice President, Joe Biden. And that's why we need President Trump to come back and finish the job that was interrupted by really a far left coup when you break it down. And Harris will only be worse than President Joe Biden has been. It's really a scary time, but an important election that you need to be engaged in. And the great way to do that is actually visiting TrumpForce47.com as well. I actually was fortunate enough to sit in on a captain's meeting done via Zoom, and let me tell you, it's a great campaign what they're putting together. Without going into really specific details with it, it's very fulfilling. It's a lot of fun. You'll meet a lot of neighbors in the process, and a great way to do something about it, because a lot of times people feel helpless and, oh, what should I do? How can I help my community? Going to TrumpForce47.com, probably the #1 way, and then look into next year. Maybe run for city council and school boards in those off years, because local governments will affect you even more than some of the federal policies.
And we ran into some people in Johnstown the other day that are working with Trump Force 47 volunteers. It's very easy to do, and they looked very happy doing it. They had the volunteer passes, the t-shirts. Always good to see people out there. Scott Pressler out there, of course, in Pennsylvania, doing the things he does greatly when it comes to registering people to vote, clearing voting rolls. We know that those numbers out there in Arizona and around the country, doing our part for election integrity and election security coming up for this election. Also this past weekend, on Saturday, outside of Auburn, Alabama, at Lake Martin, there was a huge Trump boat parade. And I went with a buddy of mine, and little did I know it was going to turn into a whole entire news story. Interviewed a lot of people. There was a guy there that actually had a drone, and then got some drone shots. So we're going to have that for you today. I just found out we can air that today. We've been in talks about which song to play and all that, but at the end of the day, we're getting the green light on a song here in a second. But directors, if you could let me know when that's available, we'll throw to that here in a little bit. Once again, kind of an end of summer, Labor Day weekend, fun Trump boat parade, but also it has everything to do with the economy. We talked to a business owner who said if Harris is president, he might be losing his business. He's very concerned about that. So we'll go to that once we know it's ready. But have you ever been to a Trump boat parade?
Been to a couple of them in Florida, and they are an absolute blast and a great way to hype up the crowd and get people prepared to not only be engaged in the campaign, but it's nice to celebrate with friends and then go knock on those doors and make those phone calls to make the difference for President Trump, because a lot of this is coming down to simply 20 counties. Many around me, about 4 in the Atlanta metro area, are going to be crucial, including Fulton and DeKalb counties, just for the overall election. But you could make a big difference just working with your sphere of influence and getting the vote out for President Trump, and that's a real fun way to be on the water and enjoying a couple of beverages and good camaraderie with many friends.
Exactly. So it's about 10:49 on the East Coast. President Trump to speak at 12 p.m. As soon as we get that Trump boat parade and from Lake Martin, Alabama, we'll go to that. But in the meantime, you see that live picture there in New York City. Our great camera ops at Right Side Broadcasting Network. They toured the country with us. We're out there, of course, sharing with you the Trump speeches, but also talking to the people all the way up to the president. Bobby, what was the last rally or event you were at? Do you remember?
That was in Asheboro, and that was in North Carolina. And what a great event that was. And we do have a wonderful team all around us here at RSBN. We're very fortunate to have the best of professionals, the best camera ops, best directors, best producers. And it's a fun, jovial family environment. And if you haven't been to any Trump event, I highly recommend going in the next couple months. There'll be plenty of opportunities for that, because you're going to meet the most interesting people. And of course, we met some folks there who it was number 86 for some. Of course, the front row Joes were in attendance, and the lovely ladies from North Carolina who follow President Trump around and wore the most beautiful, colorful dresses. And he always mentions that, oh gosh, like, you have the best husbands who let you travel around to be on tour with me. And then, of course, President Trump, that heart that he has. A lady did fall down during the speech, an elderly lady, and that's why Thank goodness even today here in Auburn it's cooled off a bit, but we've had a hot summer. Make sure you get a lot of fluids in you. Eat a nice breakfast before going to these events because you're standing for long periods of time. And he walked over to make sure she was okay. So that was a really touching moment from the president.
Yeah, great moment there. Then seen all over social media, just the humanity, right? The personal, genuine, authentic side of President Trump. And then, speaking of events, tomorrow in North Carolina, there will be a speech with, I believe it's a fraternal order of police there in North Carolina. And then guess what, Wisconsin? President Trump on his way to you on Saturday for a huge rally. We'll have that coverage right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So always good to see President Trump out there. And as you see on your screen there, if you text RSBN to 801-801, if you'd like to donate at all, go ahead and do that. We're not bought and paid for by any woke corporation. We have great sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, including you, the viewer. So if you text RSBN to 801-801, that'd be greatly appreciated. So once again, I'm Matthew Alvarez with Bobby McNeely, and we were joking at the top of the broadcast, Bobby wearing this beautiful orange tie. Looks more like Auburn Tiger colors, but if you look at the bottom of the tie, he said it's an Illinois tie.
University of Illinois, my alma mater, the Big Ten, of course, now. And we're happy to have college football back, especially because we broadcast from a football town. War Eagle, go Tigers. For all my friends back home, I have a wonderful Bible study. We meet every other Monday evening, and it's mostly SEC and ACC grads. But to my friends watching in that group, War Eagle, let's go Auburn.
And to those of you guys watching in Michigan right now, the Wolverines or the Nittany Lions or the Buckeyes or out west, the Arizona teams. I mean, there's so many colleges, of course, out there. So thank you so much for joining us. But we know it's okay to have a little bit of fun, right? We know President Trump, he golfs when he would like to golf, but he's dealing with so many serious things in this life. But he's doing it for us, and he's doing it for himself too, in the sense of, hey, he's we the people as well. He wants freedom, you know. Exactly. He wants the Constitution to continue. Speaking of freedom, check this out. Lake Martin, Alabama, a boat parade just this past Saturday. Check it out.
This country is in trouble, and we've got to have Trump back in office. If we don't, we're all going to suffer. I'm a small business owner. I have a couple of restaurants on a beautiful lake at Lake Martin, but I can assure you that it would make me very nervous if Kamala Harris was our leader. We don't need Kamala. We need Trump back in office. So I hope that you'll get to the polls. Let's get it done. We got to get Trump back in office.
It's great to be an Auburn fan, an Alabama fan, but most importantly, it's great to be a Trump American.
USA! USA! USA!
This is just phenomenal, the support he's got in Alabama and the support he's got in the whole country.
I started campaigning for Trump because he took a stand for putting up a wall, and we need that wall. And so I became a Trump delegate in 2016, 2020, and 2024.
You gotta make time. You gotta put off and go vote. I got a family too, and I'm gonna be deliberate about it and go vote.
USA! USA! USA!
Trump is America. Trump holds the values that I grew up with. He wants to run our country for all the people.
And there you go, Bobby. What you think?
Amazing footage.
Yeah, it was a good time there in Lake Martin, outside of Auburn, Alabama. Literally, guys, the stars aligned with that. I went there with a buddy of mine. I said, I want to catch a Trump boat parade. I've never been to one, right? Well, thank God for technology like an iPhone, and then I ran into somebody with a drone. Literally, everything you saw there was shot with this phone and a drone, and we edited it on iMovie and threw some music under there. I know it was kind of epic, kind of movie type of music, but at the end of the day, we know, though, that this is a very serious situation we're dealing with in this country, but a wonderful time out there with the boat parade.
Looks like a lot of fun, great patriots out there, and yeah, again, the great footage. I mean, wow, that I would have never guessed that was just an iPhone.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So anyway, enough about the iPhone skills. It's all good. Hey, the Birch Gold Group, of course, is one of the great sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. You see that free Fight Silver coin? Well, we have those right here, and you can have it as well if you get the product. So all you have to do is text Trump to 989898. Those BRICS nations like Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they're trying to devalue the US dollar by using their own dollar. So having gold, silver, precious metals as a backup, great to have.
And don't just take our word for it. Look at people like Ron Paul and Steve Bannon. We have Dan Bongino also endorsing this wonderful group. They'll give you a free packet as well to look through your options if you need to convert your 401k or IRA into precious metals, silver, and gold. This is the group to go with. So text Trump to 989898. And what's so neat about this coin, it actually has the date of the assassination attempt. Fight, as President Trump said, fight, 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 raising his fist, that iconic photo beautifully displayed on this coin with the American flag backdrop and his security detail. On the back of it, our precious White House.
And Director, I don't know if the camera is lined up, if we can get a close-up shot on it now, or we could try it for later, but it'd be great to show the people the actual coin here. It's the White House on the back. Okay, we're going to do that a little bit later in the broadcast for you. We'll get a closer shot of that. But it's awesome because you see the White House in the back there. And right now, 1600 Pennsylvania really should be belonging to President Trump. Let's be real. I think he should be ending his second term right now, and the country should be super strong and super good. But we know that that's not the case. So he is now the three-peat for the RNC nominee.
An amazing thing, someone with perseverance and the wherewithal to take all this on. And if you've had the privilege of being at our beautiful White House, the People's House, President Trump opened those doors back to the American people to give us access, literally, because even he got rid of the 9/11 security measures where you could actually be there in the Oval Office while he's there. And it's just an experience to go and watch that operate, because as serious as these times are, he can have this lighthearted nature about him that was similar to Ronald Reagan in the sense of how he wants to engage with the American people. You see these moments where he gets to interact with our youth, with those that are clearly inspired by the policies he's put into place. I think about Right to Try and all those families that did not have access to certain medicines or certain practices, and they were suffering from debilitating diseases. And you just had the one child come up to him and give him that hug. And that's the kind of person he is. At the end of the day, he's a father and a grandfather who loves this country.
And is strong as nails, right? He is Teflon Don. He naturally has so many gifts and he's using them for good. And isn't that awesome? You know, you have usually with powerful people or maybe even a billionaire, they might not use it for good. Well, President Trump has done that, is doing that, and will do that, and that's pretty awesome stuff. And then everybody that's surrounding him now, I mean, we've got some great MAGA patriots. And the MAGA thing, every time I even say MAGA now, I think of how the left wing interprets that. And the way they interpret it is not the truth. It's not true. Make America Great Again is a great thing. We see the people that are out there at all of these rallies, good-hearted people. And there are Democrats, of course, good-hearted people too. It's just, unfortunately, some of the brainwashing has brought people to the left way too much.
Well, a lot of the big tech oligarchs and the fake news putting out a separate alternate view on history. We've just seen that recently with President Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery. He was the guest of family members from the fallen soldiers in Afghanistan who went far too young and were great heroes. We mentioned their names last week here on the broadcast, and may God rest their soul. The fake news media turning that into it was a Trump campaign stop, or he was using them as props. How dare they?
Right.
It's so sad. They owe President Trump and those families an apology.
Speaking of the families, they all spoke to President Trump, and he put out all of the interviews of the families on Truth Social recently, talking about their support for the president. So we know how dirty the left can be when it comes to leadership in the mainstream media. Not talking about every Democrat across the country, but we know the ones that are. And so we're just here to shine a light. At the top of the hour, just a minute after 11:01 a.m. Eastern, President Trump expected to speak in about an hour. Let's go to a commercial. We'll be right back.
You ask and we listen. We're finally bringing the most requested offer ever. Get the queen size premium MyPillow, now only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. It adjusts to your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position. It helps keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long so you get the best sleep of your life. But that's not all. Get our 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets only $25. Our brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98. Get our famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25 and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products, including the premium queen size MyPillow, only $19.98. That's the lowest price ever. Don't delay, order today. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
Hi folks, RSBN founder and CEO Joe Seals here. Did you know there is nearly $1 trillion of infrastructure and pandemic funds yet to be spent? That's right, there's a massive amount of money that the lame duck administration is pushing hard to spend in their last few months. If the president is able to push these funds out, we could see another prolonged inflation surge, just like during COVID. And I'm sure you remember the terrible effects that high prices had on most Americans. But there's hope. A surge in prices can be beaten. A gold IRA from Birch Gold Group is the ultimate inflation hedge for your savings in uncertain times. To see how to protect your IRA or 401k, get your free info kit on gold by texting the word Trump to 989898. Birch Gold makes it seamless to roll over your retirement account while preserving your tax advantage status. Don't wait for the president's spending spree to tank the dollar further. Protect your financial future now. Text Trump to the number 989898 for your free info kit from Birch Gold.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
And good morning. Thank you guys so much for staying with us. I'm Matthew Alvarez.
And I'm Bobby McNeely. Happy to be here with you, Matthew, in beautiful Auburn, Alabama. As I've been saying all week, War Eagle.
War Eagle. That is the Auburn Tigers, of course, undefeated right now with a huge win this past Saturday. And hope your college team won out there across the country. A lot of humidity here in the South recently, but yesterday finally a little bit of a cool off, which was nice. But I want to give a shout out to my mom who's watching live right now from Ocean City, Maryland. She just texted me. She goes, I'm watching from Ocean City. So, hey, Mom, have fun out there at the beach. All right, so let's get to the matters at hand. Of course, 12 o'clock today, President Trump speaking in New York. So this is an economic club of New York.
Right, and this will hit many of his core principles and highlights from the platform of Agenda 47. Speaking on inflation, President Trump last night releasing several videos on True Social just highlighting what he hopes to do as the 47th Commander-in-Chief, and many of them highlighting not only the open border, but inflation, cost of living, how people's cost at the pump with groceries causing economic chaos throughout the country, all caused by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Everything up double-digit percents, and we're not talking 10%. You're talking 20, 30, 40, 50% increase under Biden and Harris over these past 4 years. You're looking at car insurance up 51%. I mean, there's so many things that are that have gone up. So we're hoping to see Maganomics replace Bidenomics. You know, I heard the other day, I think it was on mainstream media, them talking about that we're going into election season. Election season, I think, started as soon as the other side took over the White House, right, in 2020. I mean, it's been 4 straight years of election season, if you ask me.
And someone actually posted via X yesterday, commented on the fact that if President Trump wanted to destroy the country, he would have done that when he was president for 4 years. But if Kamala Harris wanted to help and fix the country, she would have done that in the last 3.5. So an interesting point from a viewer clearly taking on the narrative of the fake news media.
Yeah, you hear all these speeches that Harris is talking about, and she's talking about how bad it is when it comes to the economy, but then guess what? You're the one that's supposed to be running the show, you and Sleepy Joe. So. Tax Network USA, speaking of money, if you'd like to get some help with taxes, whether it's filing or maybe you missed a tax filing year, go to Tax Network USA, 800-357-1415. This group will work right there with you. All you can do is call that number, share with them what you're dealing with, and they'll help you along the way. So always a good thing to do.
Oh, it is. And look, they've added thousands of new agents in the Biden tenure. And with over 14 years of experience, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in back taxes. That's correct, 1 billion with a B. No matter the size of your tax issue, their expertise is your advantage, and they specialize in this. So give our Patriot friends a call over at Tax Network USA, and that's tnusa.com/RSBN. You can see that there on your screen, 800-357-1415. Don't get caught in the crosshairs of big government bureaucracy coming from the IRS.
All right, Tax Network USA. We're about 53 minutes until the top of the hour for President Trump's speech in New York City. We were talking at the top of the other hour at 10 a.m. Eastern about President Trump returning to his hometown, right? He's from Queens, he's there in New York, and he's talking about something he knows a lot about, the economy, money, financial markets, and he knows just his knowledge base is huge. It's just absolutely huge.
As I say, if he could make it there, he could make it anywhere, and that was the training ground for his presidency, his life experience. So this guy, when you really think about it, and I thought about this back in 2015, gosh, okay, you have this outsider coming in to make America great again. Well, he's dealt with city councils, even though he's been a builder and in private business most of his life. That's actually been a massive asset. He's dealt with world diplomats. He's dealt with leaders throughout the globe, and he knows how to handle these people, and none better than taking on, I just think about the ice rink and Mayor Ed Koch and how much of a debacle that was, and how City Hall needed Donald Trump's help, and he came on in, and Mayor Koch ended up praising him even though they were rivals.
Exactly, and then Trump Tower, a gorgeous Trump Tower. You've been there yet?
I have not actually, and
right,
that's on my bucket list because I got to try one of those. One of the taco bowls for sure.
Yeah.
But also, my friends, they've shown me the beautiful atrium and the waterfall, and of course, all the photos from his history being president, the 45th president.
Exactly, and the golden escalators, and it's just a beautiful building there in New York City, right there. I believe it is Fifth Avenue on the corner there at Central Park. I believe that would be east. So a gorgeous, gorgeous building. And I've been to Trump International in Las Vegas. There was a conference out there. My wife and I were out there. So he does great things, you know, and he's applied that to this country, and that's why we liked what he did in his first 4 years. He was saying, you know what, all of the natural business skill that he has, he just applied that to the nation.
Always with a touch of class, always with a respect for his employees, and I don't know if you saw Undercover Boss from a few years ago. It was before he was president, but he does 3 different jobs. One is the bell hand and greeting guests and saying goodbye to them with their bags. Also walking the dogs and house cleaning as well. And it was so much fun to see the people that actually did recognize him in the process. But he talked about and gave a look at how you really have to be sharp and deal with people, especially in hospitality. And I think that's why his products and his company so successful across so many brands, across the golf world, across hotels and other beautiful buildings, because it's that extra touch. You know, even when they saved the post office in Washington, D.C., I can remember him saying, I'm getting a 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue one way or another. And right down the street from the White House, that beautiful old post office that now Waldorf Astoria has purchased from the Trump company. But wow, that was always a great place to visit over the Trump years. That was the true Republican National Committee when we would go and visit, and you just see so much glitz and glam, that touch of class, almost as if it was an old Hollywood, and just a tribute back to the way our country once was, and hopefully we can get it there again very soon.
And speaking of our country, President Trump running to be president for all of America. So
Absolutely.
We know how serious this election is coming up. We see other MAGA patriots or other conservatives, freedom fighters, when it comes to just fighting for your freedom, right? Well, how do you do that? You pray, you work hard, you speak up, you keep the narrative strong, the true narrative. We've got Carrie Lake, MTG, Matt Gaetz, Byron Donalds, Wesley Hunt, Devin Nunes. I mean, the list goes on. Eli Crane. So many people out there that are on Team Freedom, including Viktor Orban, if you want to go internationally real quick. Jair Bolsonaro out of Brazil. There's so many people that are like, hey, you know what? We see what's going on, and we want freedom to continue in this US of A.
And that's a great point, Matthew, because this is not just something that is affecting America. If you look internationally, Western civilization is on the brink. There are very strange things happening in France, in the UK. There's actually a situation where the Scotland separatists right now, they were unsuccessful in 2014 with the referendum to separate as a sovereign nation from the UK. That's gained momentum again because of how the UK has skyrocketed in inflation. And it gets relatively complicated, but the Scottish want to be with the euro, not just part of Brexit. But you have major bases in the UK. You then have those northern waters there that are patrolled by the Russian government, patrolled by the UK, patrolled by the United States. So where does that leave NATO in the process? And it's so complicated that can Kamala Harris really handle these things when she hasn't been able to handle her one job as borders are that was appointed by President Joe Biden? Now the fake news media trying to scrub that narrative, but quite frankly, it's the truth. If you go back to 2021, 2022, they even addressed her as the borders are, whether it be the Washington Post or the New York Times. So this is someone who's asleep at the wheel, who clearly does not understand policy. We've even heard from some of her former staffers who have left her office saying that she really doesn't like to dive into policy. So why does she have the job in the first place?
Well, and she's also hiding from the press. She doesn't want to be revealed of how leftist, how communist, she is, Marxist, her father being a Marxist. How about Tim Walz's family the other day? Tim Walz's family all saying Walz for Trump. There was about, 6 or 7 people in a photo saying they're distancing themselves from Tim Walz, and his President Trump was really funny yesterday too. I don't know if you caught that whole talking about how weird Walz is. I mean, he's an interesting character, but the point is, regardless of the personality, what were the actions that he did as Minnesota governor? They were awful. They were terrible for the American people.
And the two big things that stand out for me were in the light of the George Floyd protests, and in most cases you can call them riots, sadly. A very sad situation. He did not send in the National Guard. He allowed Minneapolis to burn in the process. Politics were played not only by that mayor, but sadly by the police chief there. And Governor Walz could have really shown leadership there. Instead, his wife saying, the First Lady of Minnesota, she had to open the window to enjoy the sounds and the smells of the tires burning and the chaos taking place because it sounded like freedom. Vice President Kamala Harris donating to the Minnesota Freedom Fund that worked as bail money to get the bad guys out and create more chaos on the streets. And then I also think of his crazy legislation he signed in Minnesota that would go into the homes. The government would be allowed to take minor children away who were going through gender transition or therapies, and they would do that if the parents did not want to go through with the surgeries. This is crazy stuff, and even to the point where sheriffs in certain counties in Minnesota said, Governor, this is unenforceable. This law can't exist. It can't stand on its merit because you can't steal and kidnap children out of their parents' homes. I mean, this is Minnesota, USA. This is Main Street, USA. Good people up there. I don't know how they tolerate it.
Well, since you're listing off all of the failures of Governor Walz, I mean, the COVID snitch line, as you know, how about the paintballs that were being shot by some of the law enforcement to people, citizens that were out on their front porch? I believe this was during COVID, and they were telling them to go inside, and if they didn't, they started shooting at them with these paintballs. That is documented throughout a lot of media. So wild stuff there in Minnesota. I know Mike Lindell isn't too happy living there and having his business there, but hopefully this all goes away in the sense of a win for President Trump. Speaking of President Trump, the Kids Guide for President Trump, freetrumpbook.com, a great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. This also says the Kids Guide to Fighting Indoctrination. So there's a lot of other topics as well. And Bobby, it's so important because, you know, from the youth, right, you get taught a certain way of thinking, and that really gets put as a seed into your system. And then you have to unlearn that junk if you got taught false narratives, false lies.
Well, I can't tell you the number of times during my career and my tenure, having worked at Turning Point USA, where I had students actually approach me saying that I wrote a paper a certain way because I wanted to get that good grade. So it's a process of almost having to unlearn what is truly indoctrination, not only on our campuses, but also in the K through 12 public system. The reason I am the way I am is really mostly because of my education. I remember I would do research topics, especially on the presidents or on history, because these were huge topics and areas of interest for me. And I can remember back even to the 5th grade, that teacher saying, you can't say that. And then respectfully, why can't I say that? It's the truth. And, you know, I did my research and I can back up my argument. And we really have a problem with American education right now. We'll see how that changes. One of the great promises that President Trump has made pledges recently has been to get rid of the Department of Education. Now, the left is spinning that as defund education, but this is a states' rights. And this is something that President Reagan worked on, was not able to be successful with, that hopefully can happen to get rid of that bloated government bureaucracy, that one size fits all. We can also remember in more recent times, George W. Bush signing into law No Child Left Behind, Ted Kennedy's vision for bloated government influence on the federal level for our education policies. One side does not fit all, so make sure you get that freetrumpbook.com and teach your kids about the greatness of America and about the real Trump record.
And the detox process can be through information being detoxed out of your system, right? So, and that could be done at any time, whether youth or high school, college, all the way up to adulthood. There's people that got brainwashed the same thing. It just kept getting washed over their minds that this is the way it's supposed to be. And then, boy, when you get free of that, when you have awareness, when you have the awareness which equals power, the truth sets you free, as Jesus says, right? He is the truth, in my opinion. So, and I know you believe that as well, Bobby. But at the end of the day, we know that we have to have freedom. Not only freedom to, drive our car from state to state with our driver's license and everything's on the up and up, but we want to have freedom of thought. And some people out there, they want to clamp down on that, as you guys have seen. It makes me think of China with the social credit scores. If you don't do something right, or if in the UK, if you retruth or retweet something, they're monitoring all this. That's not freedom, right? So this election, I'm not saying I'm concerned. To be honest, I'm very concerned because, as you are, many of you, because of the fork in the road that we're facing. Like literally, this is freedom on the line, in my opinion. And I don't want to be dramatic about it. I don't want to cause anybody to be but it is seriously that. We are really facing freedom versus communism. We really are. It might be a slow kind of process if the left steals it or wins or whatever, but that's what we're facing. So I just wanted to say that real quick as we wait for President Trump there at 12 o'clock to speak in New York City at the Economic Club of New York. So For you, you were saying before about gas prices. You know, usually you go to, what is it, Sam's Club or?
Costco is my go-to right now, but you know, Sam's Club as well, a great option because they're able to bring it down just a little bit more than some of the other retailers.
It's always good. I mean, so we know that the economy is not doing so hot right now. So President Trump today to talk about the economy as well. And I want to rewind a little bit. Was there anything you wanted to say about kind of what I was talking about before when it comes to that fork in the road of freedom and communism? Well,
it really is. If you look at the 2024 election here, this is something that's not traditional Republican versus Democrat. What you have is clearly a list of 20 promises. I like to call it the second contract with America, hearkening back to 1994, Newt Gingrich's pledge to the American people that he would do through a legislative process. This, of course, to the executive branch. Now, some of these things President Trump can do from the perspective of executive action. So with sealing the border, stopping the migrant invasion, carrying out the largest deportation operation in American history, he could do all of that with the stroke of a pen, as Joe Biden could if he so chose to. Now, with ending inflation, which with large tax cuts happening for workers and no tax on tips, some of this will have to go through the legislative process, and that's why it'll be so important to have congressional majorities in the House and in the Senate, and to make sure there's no shenanigans on the part of the Democrats if they were to have power in the legislative branch. But this being really the key part of the election, it's the economy, stupid. James Carville mentioned this in 1992, which led to Bill Clinton's successful race against then Bush 41, the president of the United States. So the economy, a main focus for President Trump. We're in tough times here. The cost of living, very expensive. Inflation through the roof. And I'm sure this will be a very strong policy speech.
Exactly. And thinking about tomorrow as well, we go from the economy today with President Trump, which you'll hear from him in just about, 45 minutes there? 38 minutes to be exact. Tomorrow will be about law and order as he's speaking to the Fraternal Order of Police in North Carolina, and then a huge rally in Wisconsin on Saturday. Of course, all live coverage right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. A few other of the GOP promises, as Bobby is touching on here. Number 9 is end the weaponization of government against the American people. Number 10, stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, and lock up violent offenders. One more real quick, rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. I mean, there's all of these topics. I know today is heavy on the economy, but these other stories are just pouring into my mind here when it comes to the migrant crime happening in Aurora, Colorado and Chicago.
Well, so much of it affects your ability to go out there and make a living, not only for yourself, but to provide for your family, to make sure food is on the dinner table. So really, illegal immigration and the state of the economy are really the stalwarts to affect all of these other promises and to affect people's daily living. Because at the end of the day, people, they do want safety. They do want the ability to go out and make a living. And whether that's doing that from the house or going out to a job, whatever they do for work, you need to make sure you're in a safe place, or at least your commute is safe. And the federal government can do a lot for that. Really, the essence of government, whether it is local, state, or federal, is to first and foremost protect the general welfare of the American people. And federally, it's the use of the military. If you look at state and local, more of police agencies. But that is at the first and foremost the core principle of government. And whether you talk with the great one, Mark Levin, or people like Pat Robertson, they've been discussing this for years and years and years, about how you need to make America safe in order to achieve anything else.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's what will be discussed tomorrow for the Law and Order speech in North Carolina. Great point, Bobby. I mean, at the end of the day, safety, protection, the ability to have our constitutional rights, and to be able to live freely in this country. So that's, what's on the ballot coming up in November. And as President Trump said the other day on Truth Social, talking about North Carolina and some other states, the early voting process, whether it is early voting or whether it is a mail-in mail-in ballot, or whether it is mailing or it is voting on the day, election day, just to get out and vote. So I know my wife and I in our state, we're going to be probably early voting because my wife is pregnant, so we're having a baby in October. So it'll be quite interesting with that plus election. So it's going to be wild, but and then also with the industry that I work in. But I'm just sharing that with you because get your the house in order, right? Know what your plan is to vote, to make sure you get out the vote, and there's no excuses, especially for this election.
Well, and congratulations as well, because we're very excited for that from the RSBN family as well, to welcome Matthew Jr. Not that I'm throwing out that name there, I just really care for the great name of Matthew.
Thank you.
As I call him, the magnificent Matthew Alvarez. But it is so important. I'm actually going to apply later today for my absentee ballot, because I could actually, if I don't use that absentee ballot, I could still bring that back and then vote early, turn that in. Very important just to make a plan, because we don't know what will happen, and things happen on election day. So President Trump very committed to IDs and paper balloting, but first you have to win the election. So as he said, too big to rig. Drain the vote, drain that, swamp the vote, get on in there and make sure it happens. So you cannot overplan with this. And really at the end of the day, you're taking up 30 minutes of your time. And the reason why we are able to bring you this great content is because of our sponsors. But if you're so moved by this, please feel free to donate to RSBN. We are committed to being your 2024 election headquarters, and you can text RSBN to 801-801 or visit rsbnnetwork.com/donate. We are bringing to you wall-to-wall coverage. No other network does this, for speeches like today for the Economic Club of New York. Wherever President Trump is, we're going to be there bringing you so much great coverage of MAGA rallies, different presentations, remarks, and it's really an honor to do so.
Exactly. And on top of that, when there is news that affects the American people, especially if it's connected to President Trump, we have gone live right here from the studio before. So definitely a lot of news going on with the 24/7 news cycle, but RSBN to 801-801, not bought and paid for by any woke corporation. So we're out here just as you are, we the people together, desiring for truth to win, and desiring for the true narrative of common sense to prevail. So if you like what you see here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, especially when President Trump's on the stage, and also speaking from start to finish, we cover the whole thing. I can guarantee you today that some of the cable news outlets, they won't even dip into this coverage at all. They will not. They will for a little bit, and if they're watching right now, maybe they'll change their tone, because I'm going to be real. I think some of them are watching Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thanks for watching, guys. But at the end of the day, conservative media is about resonating with the people, and that's what we want to do here. We're not bought and paid for. That's the thing I think a lot of people like about Right Side is nobody's saying to us, well, you can only say this or that. You know, it's more like, hey, we have a country to save, and we're here to cover it.
And we appreciate it so much as people who want to bring you the truth, and that's why we're so grateful for your donations. And like President Trump says, if you could spare a few dollars, we deeply appreciate it. If you can't right now, because we know things are hard, please refrain from that. But if you can spare a few dollars, it would be very helpful. And I'm just looking at one of the Trump press releases here. 130 million raised in August, nearly 300 million cash on hand for the Trump-Vance campaign. And look at this. 98% of this past month's donations were under $200. This resulted in an average donation of $56 from everyday Americans. So, there's people out there that say, I can't make a difference. Oh, yeah, you can. In a number of different ways.
Exactly, and everyday Americans being highlighted on Right Side Broadcasting Network every time there is a rally. As you guys just saw, I was with Titus Ellis Smith in Johnstown the other day. We interviewed the people. You remember that long line up the hill? I mean, there was just so many people there in Johnstown. It's going to be the same thing in Wisconsin. So we're going to have a lot of great viewers that watch us are out there. They love Right Side when we walk by, and it's always nice to see that. And we're just grateful to be a part of the process here to share with you guys what you're saying, other people are saying, but most likely agree with,
Right. And I had the fortunate opportunity to interview Courtney Reed last week, who's a photographer and a painter, and she made this beautiful artwork featuring President Trump and Elvis Presley together, inspired by his famous moment where he stood up for civil rights, and really correlating the two, because it's interesting how history does repeat itself and how we're having major civil rights questions happening right now, whether it be the right to vote, election integrity, the fight for the child in the womb. All of these things happening here in America in real time, and a pivotal moment. So that was special just to hear from an everyday wonderful American such as Courtney, and the amazing work she's doing and how she was inspired by President Trump's leadership.
Exactly. So that's what it's all about, right? It's about we the people, and that's what's awesome about Right Side. That's awesome. What's awesome about President Trump as well. As you mentioned earlier, Ronald Reagan, President Trump, outsiders, right? We kind of gravitate to outsiders, and think about it, our founding fathers, outsiders. So we want people that have the country's interest in mind and in heart, not just in heart, not just in mind, both.
Right.
You want to be on the same page there for our country and for our freedoms. So once again, it is 11:30, about a half an hour until President Trump takes the stage there in New York City. His energy last night in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, quite awesome in that farm show complex building with that interview. Was great. The crowd it's funny, the crowd won't even let the interview go on. They were just so loud because they're so supportive of President Trump.
Right, and he had such energy and almost a lightheartedness about him, looked well rested. I'm sure he's doing a lot of debate prep as we look to next week. Will be a pivotal week between him and Vice President Harris at their first debate. Of course, remember, that was supposed to happen yesterday via Fox News. She initially declined, then declined again, claiming he declined the first time. It's been a back and forth between these campaigns, but President Trump geared up, ready to go into the lion's den of fake news ABC to take on not only Vice President Harris, but I'm sure to be a very unfair group of journalists, and I say that in quotations.
Yeah, I think President Trump has had it up to here with George Stephanopoulos. I can't with that. It's great. 5 days from now will be that debate. I think, are the mics open or are they closed? I mean, we keep hearing back and forth which one's going to happen.
There's a back and forth. The Trump campaign wants them closed.
Right.
It served very well against the June 27th debate with President Biden, but Kamala Harris apparently wanting those open. And I think it will be beneficial if they are closed, given the fact that President Trump can make his point and then she'll have to actually speak, where we see her really stumble. Even when she debated Vice President Pence, she really struggled on key policy issues, but of course they could only focus on the fly that landed on his head. Another, left-wing narrative that ended up on SNL. A funny moment, but also, wow, what a way to ignore how bad Kamala Harris is and was on policy. But my one fear with a closed mic is the fact that will ABC be fair to President Trump?
I think that when Harris makes a statement, right, and it makes no sense, which many of them do, I almost want President Trump to stand there and not even respond. Because sometimes that speaks powerfully, the action speaking louder than the words. Because I guarantee it, just like with Biden, there were some things that we just didn't understand what he was talking about. And to even respond to something like that is I almost think if you let it sit for 5 seconds, 1/1000, let it really sink in what she just said.
I think that's a great point, Matthew, because there is power in the camera and being able to convey that, which President Trump is well adept at. I think about this one time. I want to say it was a member of the Saudi royal family, and they were with a group of world leaders. And this gentleman fell asleep, and President Trump was with our beautiful First Lady, Melania. And he was just staring at him, and the camera had happened to pan to catch him. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because you could see clearly what he was thinking, like, what are you doing falling asleep in the middle of this ceremony? And he just was clearly and rightfully so judgmental of this gentleman who, for whatever reason, could not stay awake.
Well, if you're just joining us, we talked about Hayden headphones earlier, Hayden Harris headphones. Thanks to Carly Bonnet on coining the Hayden headphones Harris. I shortened it up to Hayden headphones because she went up on Air Force 2. I know I brought this up before if you've been watching the whole time, but man, she just doesn't want to even hear anything from the press. Walls is doing the same thing, wearing his baseball hat, t-shirt, and jeans, trying to act like the common person. He's not. He's not what common America is. His whole family has turned against him and said, we're voting for President Trump. Now, to Walls and Harris, I just want to say in general, to the people, we hope the best for them to open up and to get revealed the light and truth and get things right. But to the policies and to all the things that they're doing negatively, we don't like any of those. We actually hate some of those policies because they're anti the American people, anti the truth. And a lot of people see it. Even Democrats see how far left these guys are. So it's kind of a joke at this point. But here we are. This is what the Democrats have brought up. So we'll see what happens.
Right. It will be very interesting to watch. And you know, the interesting thing is, too, I'd love to see Vice President Harris or Governor Walz address a group like the Economic Club of New York. Could they handle a room of Wall Street brokers and Main Street businessmen who are in the world's #1 city, our largest city, and the world's main economic trading forum, New York City, President Trump's hometown, a place he dominated, whether it be real estate, whether it be the golf world, whether it be the multitude of companies he created within the Trump organization to make American lives great again, long before he jumped into presidential politics. So I'd like to see if they could handle a speech like this and, quite frankly, just handle the job that takes place at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
President Trump said it just last night on that Fox interview with the town hall with Hannity in front of that crowd. Like, could Harris sit here and take this kind of Q&A on question and answer? Obviously, we know that wouldn't happen. And maybe CNN or MSDNC is thinking up a town hall for Harris where it's going to be softball questions. It's going to be the same old, same old. We've seen through what they're doing. And at the end of the day, guys, we know it's 61 days until the election, and then there's some early voting going on as well. You got to check which state is doing that out there. But MyPillow.com is also a great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Whether it's the pillow, the slides, the slippers, the Giza sheets, the mattress topper, so many great products there at MyPillow.
And the original MyPillow itself, of course, we have the Labor Day mattress sale still going on. Save up to 50% and an additional $100 off. You're down to $439.99 for a wonderful mattress. And please support Mike Lindell by shopping at mypillow.com/RSBN. Here's a great man. I mean, we got to interview him last week. What a privilege that was, talking about Minnesota politics, talking about election integrity. And there's another gentleman, not only an amazing life story, but he has gone out there and been willing to break bread with people like Jimmy Kimmel to go and speak the truth while being laughed at the same time, clearly going on shows that have a different agenda. Mike Lindell, unafraid by the grace of God to get out there and tell the truth.
Exactly, and the truth he speaks widely and freely. For him to be able to speak about his faith in Jesus Christ of Nazareth, for him to freely do that, that's a right that he has, a constitutional right in this country. So I know you know that, but what I'm saying is, will that always be the way it is in this country? And that is what is at stake, I believe, coming up this November and then the future of this nation. So got to keep our constitutional rights. Speaking of the election, 93 electoral votes up for grabs in the following 7 swing states. Pennsylvania, 19, Georgia, 16, Wisconsin, 10, Michigan, 15, Nevada, 6, Arizona, 11, and 16 in North Carolina. So a lot at stake there, Bobby.
Right, and you have secretaries of state in these states, namely Michigan, keeping RFK Jr.'s name on the ballot, but then also removing names like Cornel West, the other third-party candidate, based on technicalities within the law, even though the Kennedy campaign requesting to be removed. Very interesting to make you think if there's some special interest involved there. And then in Michigan specifically, we have yet to see that with the case, but a judge in Michigan actually saying the Secretary of State has to revisit that decision regarding RFK. But regardless, RFK Jr. endorsing President Trump a short 2 weeks ago and been hitting the campaign trail hard for him, and also a member of his transition team, in addition to Tulsi Gabbard, who ran for president 4 years ago as a Democrat.
And also Linda McMahon and others joining the Trump transition team for a hopeful victory in November. President Trump is speaking about 21 minutes from now in New York City, and then again tomorrow he'll be in North Carolina, and then on Saturday in Wisconsin for a huge rally. We'll have all that coverage for you right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Bobby, let's talk about a couple maybe personal matters in the sense of why you got so involved with politics. And I mean, you've worked at Truth Social, you've worked with Turning Point, you're at Right Side now. How did you get started in all that?
Well, you know, as I mentioned before, it was really an interest in civics and interest in history as a student. And I can remember going back to 5th grade and on, just having certain teachers, and I'm glad they did this because they challenged me, saying that it wasn't the truth, that what I said, I can't say it, things of that nature. And then that really got me spurred and interested to begin with. Then I also saw how being involved in politics is simply a downstream of culture. So to help my community, to help the culture at large, getting involved civically is the way to do it one way or another. And that's pretty much a nutshell of how it all happened, but also being inspired by our founding fathers, what they had put pen to paper, inspired by God, to make this the greatest nation in the history of time, taking the best of civilization and putting it together into a constitutional republic ruled by natural law, by nature's God, our God, Jesus Christ, and the fact that you could also not believe in that, but also partake and share in that as long as you believed in each other's divinely inspired rights coming from the Almighty. It's an amazing thing to really study and think about. And quite frankly, our first 13 colonies, our first states, you had to be a Bible-believing Christian to be able to be in the process. We've strayed a bit far from that in times, but we're still holding on to the truths that have made this country self-evident, that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that's what's kept me inspired and has been a large part of my career. And it's just such an honor to be here with you, Matthew, to share all those experiences and to continue the fight for free speech.
Likewise, Bobby, likewise. And, you know, Judeo-Christian principles, I mean, that's what this country is founded on. That's what people, a majority of people, want to see continue here in this country. But also to have that freedom to decide, well, do you want to talk about your faith or do you not? I mean, you have a freedom to do that.
Right.
You know, that's, again, President Trump running to be president of all of America, though, and that's what we are seeing when it comes to speeches and what he already did in his first term. So, Tax Network USA, another great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, 357-1415. You see that number on your screen there. Bobby, I mean, when it comes to taxes, whether you overpay, whether you miss a payment, whether you didn't file, it's good to have a group like Tax Network USA.
And we've had thousands of agents added on during the Biden tenure, and many of these people have gone and harassed the everyday American because of who they're donating to or whether they missed it because it was too complicated. So it's great to get these experts in your corner, these great patriots over at taxnetworkusa.com. They have over 14 years of experience saving an average of $1 billion in back taxes for clients. Yes, $1 billion. It's an incredible number. And they just don't negotiate. They go in hard to take on the IRS. And you can find more at taxnetworkusa.com/RSBN or just call the number you see on your screen, 800-357-1415.
Tax Network USA, thank you guys so much for being a great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. When you look at the electoral map back in, we're going to do a little history real quick. In 1984, it was Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale, and all of the states were red except for Minnesota, 10 electoral votes because Mondale was from Minnesota, and then DC, that 3 electoral votes. So there's only 13 electoral votes for the Democrats. It seems like the same kind of thing could happen this time around. I know things have changed a bit, but there's so much red in each state across this union, and I do believe a majority of this country, polls, boots on the ground, seeing what's happening out there in this country, is for President Trump.
Well, and the Reagan film, a great reminder of that, because at that time, too, you had a media establishment who was heavily going after President Reagan on the AIDS crisis, on saying he was too much of a cowboy on foreign policy and too aggressive with the Soviet Union. You had bands like Genesis, which I'm a huge Phil Collins fan, but gosh, they were very anti-Ronald Reagan in that time. And you saw that within the culture, remnants of SDS, the Students for a Democratic Society, who really clashed heads with Reagan when he was governor of California and then president of the United States. And another great perspective of that movie was the fact that this whole narrative was told by the gentleman John Voight plays, a KGB agent who's retired, who is telling the story of Reagan having monitored him throughout his career. And wow, it's very eerily similar to what's taking place right now, but some hope that, look at the way President Trump is attacked. Could he have a landslide? It's possible, but we have to get involved and get out there and vote.
Yes, 100%. That's the only way that the map will turn red that way for the electoral votes. Before we get to our great sponsor with the Wellness Company, I was thinking about the whole outsider aspect. We know President Trump and Ronald Reagan, outsiders. President Trump did great things for our country, as did Ronald Reagan. But when you look at another outsider that's a Democrat, though, he didn't do great things for our country, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was governor of California.
Right.
He didn't do anything great. So, I mean, you could be an outsider, but you could also have some brainwashed left-wing policies that you were brought up on, learning the teachings of, Nietzsche and Darwinism and, Marxism and that kind of thing. And so it doesn't always work, but when somebody's got their mind and their heart in the right spot, right, it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And they say, too, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that was a situation with Schwarzenegger, but clearly was overwhelmed by the far left in his state and did not execute on the free market policies that inspired him to become a Republican and join the party when he became an American citizen. An inspiring story regardless, but there are times where the outsider cannot take advantage of a system that may be too overwhelming. President Trump clearly has been in the trenches before. He's going to show that again today with his experience from being a great businessman in New York City, taking on the unions, but also welcoming them to the table. There's an interesting story who is a former mobster in New York City, actually came out and said, President Trump never once took a bribe. This guy is as clean as it gets. And great to have these voices from years and years ago contrasting the deep state lawfare, the deranged Jack Smith and other prosecutors trying to discredit President Trump and his clean business record. And Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, going after the Trump Organization. Don and Eric running that, doing a wonderful job as executive vice presidents for their father's company. It's just amazing what this family's gone through.
Yeah, a lot of lawfare going on there. Is it Michael Franzese you're referring to, maybe?
Michael Franzese. I want to say it's Michael Franzese.
Yeah.
That was a great interview.
And he's got a great story if you want to look him up. Michael Franzese, a great story. The Wellness Company, I want to show you guys these boxes once again, these great cases. This is a medical emergency kit brought to you by MakeCareGreatAgain.com. It's the Wellness Company. A lot of good prescriptions in there once you fill out that medical form, right?
Oh, yes. You got the hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, the Z-Pak, 8 other medications in there. And you need these things because there's a bird flu summit coming up, sponsored by the World Health Organization in October. One of their main agenda items, mass fatality management planning. Scary stuff, given that we learned so much from the COVID pandemic of 2020. Very easy, as you could tell. We could throw these things up and down. We won't right now, but you could put them right in your pantry, take them in a backpack, take them hiking. You might need that just in case you get sick.
Exactly. So MakeCareGreatAgain.com. There's a promo code RSBN, get 15% off. So again, ivermectin, a Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other prescriptions there. Once you fill out that medical form, you'll get this shipped to you. And always good to have that to kick the bacteria or virus right out of your system. So MakeCareGreatAgain.com, right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, as we are approaching the top of the hour, as we await President Trump there in the Big Apple. Speaking at that economy, or the Economic Club of New York, when's the last time you were in New York City?
January of 2021. So this is right pretty much in the height of COVID. I really enjoyed it. Well, actually, at the time, they weren't allowing certain flights from certain airports. So I was flying out of Chicago O'Hare to see friends who are actually in New Jersey, so I went through Newark. But you would go over Hoboken through the subway system.
Hold on. How'd you pronounce that?
Hoboken.
Hoboken.
Hoboken. I did that wrong. That was a Chicago thing.
That's awesome. I had to stop him.
That's okay.
Hoboken, New Jersey.
Hoboken.
Hoboken.
Hoboken, the home of Frank Sinatra.
Thank you. I was just going to say the home of Frank Sinatra, and there's this great pizza place there. There's so many great spots.
Old Blue Eyes, have you been there?
I don't know what that is.
I think the one that's overlooking the skyline.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's some great spots.
Yeah, there's some great spots.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong.
So Hoboken, New Jersey.
Hoboken.
Anyway, we said that a lot. Hope some of you are laughing. But anyway, 10 minutes to President Trump there in New York City. I used to work in that city. I used to be a reporter in New York and in New Jersey. But boy, that was back in 2010 to 2014. I'm so glad I'm out of New York. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. Because right now New York is dealing with so many terrible things. Now, President Trump wins New York, well, hopefully he wins New York too, but wins the White House. I'd have no problem with checking out New York again. Maybe not to live there, but it's just so much crime. And I think the people there would echo that sentiment. I can also say that my dad was born in Manhattan, my mom was born in Brooklyn, sister born in Jersey. So I'm allowed to say what I just said.
Well, you have that public-private partnership, but also federal government can come in and help the localities, whether it's through the National Guard, whether it's the mass deportation that President Trump has promised to do and will execute, the largest since President Eisenhower did the same back in the 1950s. And very important because that's where a lot of the crime is coming from, this illegal immigration and MS-13. As we mentioned last hour, Aurora, Colorado, what's happening in Chicago with the migrant apartment complexes that are just, you don't have people responding to it. You don't have police responding to these situations, and very sad and hard to be a tourist or let alone someone trying to work and make a living in these cities.
Exactly, and a shout out to the New York Young Republicans in New York City and all of the great people that are doing wonderful things in New York State, within that 5 boroughs of the city, out there on Long Island. I've got family on Long Island. So I'm not just hating on it, I'm hating on the crime that's happening there. I think New York is a great spot to visit and all that, but you have to have law and order. So,
you have to.
But we'd also love to see New York go red. New York go red coming up. Let's go to Birch Gold Group, one of our other great sponsors. Bobby, do you want to talk about this real quick?
I love this coin, and you can see that on your screen there. It is the Free Fight silver coin that enshrines the scary situation, which became a glorious day, could have been a very terrible day. And our thoughts and prayers still with Corey Campitor, the hero firefighter that we lost. He protected his family, shielded them from the assassin's bullets. And this coin shows that moment where President Trump is flanked by his Secret Service agents. The date, July 13th, 2024, and it says fight, as he raised his fist and said, fight, 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 did not back down from a scary situation. You can have this free with any purchase from Birch Gold. Find out more by texting Trump to 989898. And this is something you need to find out if you can have a tax-sheltered retirement account, given the craziness on the world stage, given the fact that the petrodollar is not the world's reserve currency as it has been for the last 50 years. That's thanks to Joe Biden and people like Kamala Harris, who clearly don't know what they're doing at the top. So go to the Patriot Friends at Birch Gold by texting Trump to 989898.
Birch Gold Group, a great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We'll take hopefully a closer look at these coins a little bit later on the broadcast. Let's look at number 17 out of the 20 GOP promises, and then we'll look into number 18 as well. Number 17 is keep men out of women's sports. Number 18, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic. Again, makes me think of the students in North Carolina who did not let Old Glory fall to the ground.
Right, and that was inspiring. Gen Z is Gen free. And like 2016, this is my own personal prediction, having followed this for many years, being a part of the political process, whether it be at the federal, state, or local levels. That blue wall was knocked down in the beginning of my tenure at Turning Point USA. I had a territory of Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan. The thing that struck me around the small towns surrounding these college campuses was the amount of the Trump offices, the RNC activity, the fact that Hillary Clinton was taking these things all for granted, really no ground game there, and they kept saying we're going to knock that blue wall down. Well, sure enough, they did. I think with this election, there's no data on the 18 to 22-year-olds. A lot of them, their first election, these college students, I think a lot of them are going to go for Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's what we're seeing right now throughout the country, from the polls to the boots in the ground to all these rallies we're at. I mean, we're seeing people of all ages at the rallies, from youth all the way up to elderly. We're seeing people of all backgrounds, of all ages, there in support of President Trump, whether it's Atlanta, Philadelphia, Johnstown the other day in PA, then upcoming on Saturday in Wisconsin.
And for any of the frat and sorority stars, we are in a college town. We always love seeing you at these rallies because they are a little bit more entertaining, very high energy, sometimes blowing kisses at the camera. So we love that the youth are engaged and organized and wanting to be part of making their country great again. It's exciting because really in this election, and you see these in different cycles, but when you look at millennials and Gen Zers put together, it's the largest voting demographic, generationally speaking, in America right now. And usually that's the opposite. The boomers had that for a long time. And of course, it's dependent upon birth rates and such, but usually the older people are outnumbering the younger people. That's now reversed. So if the young people completely get involved, that's going to be a larger voting bloc at the end of the day than some of our older citizens.
Exactly. And I remember speaking to a number of people in Grand Rapids, Michigan, 1 week after J13 in Butler, Pennsylvania. And everybody was on edge, of course. We saw what just happened 7 days prior. But when I got there in Grand Rapids, if those of you remember, everybody was excited to be there. Everybody was not afraid. They stood there and they were saying, we're going to fight, fight, fight with President Trump. Fight, 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 of course, means praying hard, working hard, speaking up, voting, doing what we can to have victory this November when it comes to those following things, those prior things I just mentioned. But the passion there, people just, it didn't deter them, Bobby. It didn't deter them.
Well, and that was the most striking thing, I think, in the immediate aftermath of the assassination attempt. As President Trump said, there could have been a stampede. People could have run in all different directions. Everyone stood their ground. And I think that's just so characteristic of what MAGA means. And RFK Jr. spoke on that recently. It means people caring about one another. It means neighbors looking out for neighbors. It's being engaged in your civic process. And that was really, I think, the defining moment for a movement that's really disparaged across big tech and big corporate media as being hostile, as being violent. I mean, these things are love fests. We've been so privileged to go to how many now, we can't even count the amount of times to cover these wonderful rallies. But the MAGA movement is about people, caring for people, and being involved in civic engagement.
100%. About an hour ago, President Trump on Truth Social said, quote, Comrade Kamala's small business plan would destroy our small business economy. He also was thanking the people of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, saying it was a beautiful evening there as part of Hannity's town hall. Again, I guess there's a second part of that coming up, but of course, a couple other items here from President Trump. How about 14 hours ago, he said, nobody can believe I am still under a gag order from Judge Merchan, and despite being the leading candidate for President of the United States, I am not allowed to speak about a trial that virtually every well-known and respected legal scholar said, quote, there is no crime, end quote. President Trump saying on Truth Social, I did nothing wrong, witch hunt, release the gag order. So we see that these attacks that are happening in lawfare are attacks not only against President Trump, but against the American people, but also against truth and freedom. That's what these attacks are all rooted in.
Right, as he said in the past, look, they really are after you, the American people. I'm just in the way. And it's remarkable to see this man, the resilience, the perseverance, backed up by a loving, passionate family. We saw them on full display at the RNC, and how impressive was that, just to see a united front to take on the lawfare. I mean, we're talking 2 impeachments that were absolute shams, especially the second one. We're looking at the lawlessness in not only the raid on Mar-a-Lago, but these rogue prosecutors using RICO statutes, using falsehoods to go after President Trump. Legal and constitutional scholars on both sides of the aisle. I just think of Alan Dershowitz, who has been so on the forefront, who represented President Trump so well in the first impeachment. He actually supported President Biden and voted for President Biden, but said what's going on against President Trump is illegal. And then you have an assassination attempt on top of it. While in the meantime, as he's trying to govern in his first term, bureaucratic deep staters trying to undermine the president in the process. The resilience of Donald Trump is truly incredible, and he will go down in history as being one of the greatest.
Yeah, exactly. Teflon Don at it again today in New York City. It is the top of the hour in about, 20 seconds from now. At 12 o'clock Eastern is when President Trump will take the stage there, or depending on traveling and logistics. But we'll bring that to you live as soon as it happens right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. If you'd like to follow Right Side Broadcasting Network on X, it's at RSB Network. Or if you'd like to follow on Truth Social, it's at RSBN. Also on Rumble, our RSBN channel, and of course on YouTube as well. So you can see there too the newsletter by going to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. Always good, Bobby, to stay plugged in to news sources or live event coverage like ours to just really know, have your finger on the pulse.
Exactly, and please like, share, and subscribe across all of these major platforms. And we have proven to the big tech oligarchs that we cannot be canceled for simply sharing what is going on out there. So you can share that with neighbors, with friends, all of the wall-to-wall coverage of what we do here at RSBN. And that's what makes us different than everyone else in the media, whether it be corporate or whether it be independent. We bring you that wall-to-wall coverage. You get to see all the interviews. We interview the American people. Many of our great viewers watching now even have been interviewed with us, and it's a pleasure to talk to the American people and to see what you're up to. And that's a great thing. Stay in contact with us too. I know we can find you on True Social, and that's at Matthew Alvarez.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. I'm at Robert B. McNeely. Also over on Instagram, Robert McNeely TV. So please feel free to interact with us on these platforms so we know what you want to hear as the viewers of Right Side Broadcasting, or if you have a great idea, because that's how sometimes people get interviewed in the process. We see them on the platforms doing great work, and we're like, oh, wow, you should come on the program, talk about that. And we are the real news, getting you this real action of President Trump, not only today at the Economic Club of New York, but in everything that he does as he preps and prepares to become the 47th president of the United States.
We are 100% the opposite of fake news. We love God, we love our country, we love the Constitution, we love freedom, we love the truth, we love we the people, and we love President Trump and all of the people that are running for office that are endorsed by President Trump. Just going to be real about it. Why not? Because, in the news business, there is news reporting, and then there's the op-ed, right? The opinion editorial. You're seeing it all over cable news. You see it all over the newspapers. This is part of what we do here at Right Side, just as you'd see anywhere. But we also will report news, just like news today at 12 o'clock when President Trump takes the stage there, or takes that podium. Tomorrow in North Carolina, Saturday in Wisconsin for a rally. So a lot of great things in store, and we're happy to be here with you, including all of the other correspondents that work on air here and everyone behind the scenes. It's a family of people that really want to see great things for our country, and it's a pro-free speech network. So we're so glad you're here with us on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and thank God for Truth Social as well.
Absolutely. A wonderful organization, great patriots over there who proved everyone wrong in the process. Many people saying it could never work, it will never get up on air, and I say we proved them wrong because I was part of that organization. That was a really pleasured and happy tenure, and I still love to use the platform, and it's been a great voice for not only President Trump, but for those who have been canceled because they simply had a political opinion or found themselves on the right side of history, but the big tech oligarchs wanted to control lives and put people down. Clearly, we have fought back peacefully and patriotically, and it's exciting to see that culmination. As President Trump says, our retribution is our success at the ballot box, and that's why it's so important to, like number 19 says on the policy platforms, secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. But in the meantime, prep to vote, whether that's absentee balloting, early balloting, the day of, just make that plan and go do it. It takes about, 30 minutes of your time. I think of the longest I've had to wait to vote maybe in my whole life, probably 45 minutes. And even then, I enjoyed the moment. I got to talk to people in line, and it's your constitutional duty. And that's something I think about. I had a teacher actually in 8th grade who said, look at that American flag. That red on there is the blood of American patriots spilled so that you have the right to speak your mind and to worship God freely in the most beautiful land that's ever been created. And that rings true today.
100% rings true. And all you have to do is call your county election office or your board of elections, wherever you're located, to find out, hey, if you do want to vote early, or if you do, of course, if you're going to vote on day of, however you vote, obviously just get out and do it, because that's what we're up against here. We have to do it, and that's what we're going to do coming up this November. And also, like I said earlier, some states out there are doing early voting well before November 5th. Mm-hmm. So whatever state you're in, just kind of look it up and maybe get taken care of that today or tomorrow. I know my family will be taking care of that very soon as well. So once again, Matthew Alvarez alongside Bobby McNeely. You're watching Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's about 12:05 on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast, 9:05 out there watching, tuning in for President Trump's speech, which will be at the Economic Club of New York, as you see there on the left side of your screen. We've been here since 10 a.m. Sharing our thoughts and commentary and some of the news stories going on, anything from Aurora, Colorado with Venezuelan gangs to Chicago to the terrible tragedy yesterday in Georgia at the school. So there's a lot going on out there, but we know that one of the most important things outside of a tragedy like that is the election, of course. So we're bringing that live coverage to you. Thanks so much for joining us here as we are 5 days away from the debate between Harris and President Trump.
And these policies being highlighted because so many of these tragedies, Matthew, over the last 4 years were preventable. And how do you prevent that? It's through smart policy. We see that there are 20 promises, the Agenda 47, adopted by the Republican National Committee at their convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, just about 2 months ago in the middle of July. Going to KamalaHarris.com, there still is not a policy platform. Sometimes, President Trump has joked that she might get some MAGA fitting, whether it be a red MAGA hat, a MAGA shirt, because sometimes she steals his policy platforms. Two that come to mind, it's the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security for our elderly citizens, but that seems to be evolving ever since President Trump came out with it first.
Exactly. Hide in headphones, Harris. Thanks, Carly Bonet, for that one, but hide in Harris and hide in headphones. Of course, with Air Force Two the other day, just still unbelievable that she did that walking by the press, ignoring the American people. Walls doing the same thing. You saw there on the left side of your screen one of the production crew organizing the podium and the teleprompters there as President Trump is expected at any moment. And as soon as that music starts, of course, we'll be going right there to New York City. And then after the speech, we'll have a few sponsors to thank. So we'll see you on the other side of the speech. And then tomorrow, North Carolina, for the Fraternal Order of Police. And how about the law enforcement across our country, man? Shaking hands with President Trump, taking photos with the guy. He's not even so-called the technical president right now, but they don't care. They want to take a photo with Donald Trump.
And you see the union support lining up behind him from the police unions tomorrow in North Carolina. But I just think recently Arizona having endorsed him, the Border Patrol being very vocal in support. That June 27th debate with President Biden, clearly the Border Patrol rebuking the statements of Joe Biden that he had all the support of law enforcement and specifically the Border Patrol. He was incorrect about that, and law enforcement has been thoroughly backing President Trump because he's not only worried about law and order, but the safety of these men and women who put on the uniform, who are willing to go out there and defend their communities, regardless of the task force that they are with, whether that be local, state, or federal. these people are heroes, and they just need a pat on the back once in a while because it's a hard job, it's a stressful job. And think about this, putting on the uniform, going out every day to protect your community, you might not come home to your family. That's the reality of the job. But they're willing to do it because they love their community, and President Trump clearly loves them. So we got to have their back.
Why don't we go to New York City right now? I think this is the opening right now, Director, if we want to go there. Okay, they're telling us that there's just music playing in the background, but I see the guy talking there, so I'm not sure if he is testing the microphone or what. But again, live coverage since 10 a.m. here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's about 10 after 12 on the East Coast as we wait for President Trump to take the podium there. What an awesome event that was in Johnstown, Pennsylvania just a few days ago. People were waiting hours before, the day before, in line.
Well, I was amazed at the footage that we got just going. I mean, it's miles and miles. I had a personal friend I used to work with, actually a church organist, Matthew Sprinkle, who's in the area. He was taking pictures there and commented on Facebook many times about how exciting it was. He had not been to a rally himself in some time. And you had people, like you mentioned, Colorado, Oregon, coming in from all over, just 57 miles east of the steel city of Pittsburgh, and the terrible towel turning into the Trump towel in red and yellow, those traditional colors. And it looks like President Trump is coming out on stage to present to the Economic Club in New York City.
And respected business leaders for welcoming me back to the storied New York Economic Club. Storied indeed. A very special thanks to Barbara Van Allen. Barbara, thank you very much. And former director of the National Economic Council, Larry Kudlow. What a job he's done. What a job he's done. Former chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, Kevin Hassett, Ambassador Robert Lighthizer, terrific person, former Secretary Wilbur Ross, former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, former SEC Chairman Jay Clayton, Ambassador Woody Johnson, Senior Advisor Stephen Miller, my friends and respected business leaders all, John Paulson, Jamie Dimon, Steve Witkoff, Steve Schwarzman, Scott Bassett, Jeff Sprecher, Richard Kurtz, former head of the World Bank, David Malpass, and the two co-chairs of my presidential transition team that are being inundated with phone calls and requests, Linda McMahon and Howard Lutnick. Thank you. As we gather today, we have an economic disaster on our hands. We have an economy in crisis, a failing nation, a nation in serious decline, under the radical policies of my former opponent, Joe Biden, and my new opponent, Kamala Harris. 1.3 million workers have become unemployed in the past 12 months. I don't know if anybody knows that. The typical American family has lost over $28,000 due to rampant and record-setting inflation. Credit card debt has reached the highest in history, with more than 1 in 3 Americans reporting they have maxed out their credit cards. They've maxed out. Families now need to earn an estimated $110,000 a year to afford a typical home, meaning 65% of households are locked out of buying just an ordinary house. Gasoline prices, grocery prices, electricity prices, mortgage rates, and virtually everything else are up 30 to 100% since I left office. 8.4 million Americans are now working second jobs, the highest in more than 30 years. The real wages of African American workers are down by over 6%, a short period of time. The real incomes from Hispanic men are down 6.6%, or $3,600 per year. And on top of that, African Americans and Hispanic American jobs are under massive threat from the invasion taking place at our border. They're taking the jobs of Hispanic Americans, African Americans, and nobody talks about it. But I won't let it happen. Yet after presiding over the border, the worst in history for any country, there's never been a border like this. 21 million people, we project. This total economic catastrophe, the border czar, Kamala Harris, has now been slotted in by the Democrats to be reelected. She wants 4 more years to enforce a radical left agenda that poses a fundamental threat to the prosperity of every American family and America itself. And we're talking about America itself. She wants to defund the police, have totally open borders, ban fracking in Pennsylvania and everywhere else, take away your private health insurance, and perhaps most pertinent to the very brilliant people in this room, raise your business and corporate taxes, and unbelievably, she will seek a tax on unrealized capital gains. Most people don't even know what that means. What does it mean? She has been after all of this for years, and as everyone knows, she is a Marxist who destroyed almost single-handedly San Francisco, and when she was the AG, California itself, not the same place. People are leaving, they're fleeing like they are in New York. She'll seek out and she will try and get those things if she's elected, and she may very well succeed in getting them. She recently said her values have not changed, and these have really been her values for her entire career. Her values haven't changed. That's what she wants. So she told the truth. We're not going to let this happen. Communism is the past, freedom is the future, and it is time to send Comrade Kamala Harris back home to California, where crime is rampant and fleeing is the #1 occupation. I'm here today to lay out my plan to rescue our country from this nightmare and to bring back to its citizens the American dream, bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. 8 years ago, I came before you as a candidate for president and shared my vision to end the stagnation and return to rapid growth. That's what we did. As president, I am very proud to say that we accomplished something that nobody thought that was even possible. Before the pandemic, real median household income rose by $7,684. And even after the pandemic, annual incomes were up $6,400. The average American household saw a $197,000 increase in real net worth in 48 months. For the bottom 50% of households, average wealth more than doubled, increasing by 121%. Lowest income people benefited the most. After 12 years of decline, we added nearly 7 million new homeowners. Never happened before. And in 3 years, we created 7 million new jobs, 260% more than projected when I took office. When I took office, they said you couldn't hit those projections, and we were 260% higher than what we said we could do. From the day I won to the day I left, the S&P 500 increased by 80%, and we did it all with virtually no inflation. We had virtually no inflation. Think of that. Who could believe that? I delivered the largest tax cuts and reform in American history by far, slashing rates for working families and cutting the business tax from the highest in the world. We had the highest in the world, 35%, and actually, when you add local and state numbers that were getting close to 50, but much, much higher, nobody's ever seen. We brought it all the way down to 21%, which everybody said was impossible to do. And I heard it from everyone. They said, you'll never be able to do that. And I got it down to 21%. I cut a record number of job-killing regulations. In 4 years, we cut more regulation than any president in the history of our country, by far. I'm proud to be the only president in modern history to achieve a net regulatory reduction during my term, and it was a substantial reduction, and for every regulation we added, we cut more than 5.5 regulations. We unleashed American energy, and within 3 years, we had increased domestic oil production by 47%, and we were just getting started. The price of gasoline was $1.87 a gallon. Doesn't that sound good right now? We negotiated and renegotiated more than 50 trade agreements with other countries that were taking advantage of us, as they all do, to protect the American worker and to open foreign markets, and we did a great job. I ended NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made in the history of our country, and replaced it with the USMCA, perhaps the best trade deal ever made in history. That's Mexico and Canada. I stood up to China like no one else before me. No one came even close. And I saved the US auto industry from obliteration with a 27.5% tariff on all Chinese cars that remains in place to this day. They want to take it off, but they can't, because number one, it's too much money, and number two, we would be invaded by Chinese cars on top of the other invasions that are taking place. Without it, our auto industry would be dead. And now I am going further. We will bring our automaking industry to the record levels of 37 years ago, and we'll be able to do it very quickly through tariffs and other smart use of certain things that we have that other countries don't. For 4 straight years, I fought for American workers like I would fight for my own family. I took care of our economy like I would take care of my own company. In every decision I asked, will I create jobs here, or will I be sending jobs overseas? Will it make America richer and stronger, or will it make our country weaker and poorer? I always put America first, every single time. And when our country was hit by the China virus, we saved the economy. We rescued tens of millions of jobs. And after COVID, I handed Kamala and Joe the fastest and strongest recovery ever recorded, nothing even close. With 1.4% inflation, the 30-year mortgage rate was at 2.4%, and the highest stock market in history. This is despite the pandemic. To date, I handed them back the highest stock market to date, after having just suffered with the rest of the world a pandemic, the likes of which nobody had ever seen before. We did an incredible job, and remember, far more people died of COVID under Biden-Harris than under President Trump. Many, many more people. We delivered an economic miracle, which Kamala and Joe turned into an economic disaster. just like they turned the border and indeed the whole world into a catastrophic surrender. Starting on day one, Kamala launched a war on American energy and orchestrated a nation-wrecking border invasion with illegal aliens pouring in from countries all over the world. They came in from countries that nobody ever heard the name of that country. Those countries, from their prisons and jails, there is a difference, from mental institutions and insane asylums, as well as record numbers of terrorists, human traffickers, and sex traffickers. Numbers that we've never seen before taking place over the last 3.5 years. Then Kamala cast the deciding votes on trillions of dollars in wasteful spending, which together with their terrible energy policies gave us the worst inflation perhaps in the history of our country. Nearly 2/3 of the jobs created under the Harris-Biden administration were bounce-back jobs. Bounce back. They were bounce-back jobs that I handed them from before the pandemic. This happens with pandemics. You have bounce-back jobs. The pandemic comes and it goes, and those people go back to their jobs. And just last week, Joe Biden admitted that on social media. I don't know if he knew what he admitted, but that's what it said. I wonder who drew it. Perhaps that person is no longer employed by the Democrats. But right now, it's even worse than that. Under Kamala Harris's policies, 3 million workers are now missing from the job force compared to 2020. 3 million workers, that's a lot. Over 500,000 fewer people have full-time jobs today than just 1 year ago, and 100% of the net job creation in the past year has gone to illegal migrants. Think of that. 100% of the jobs created under this administration has gone to illegal migrants that came into our country. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris formed the worst presidency and vice presidency by far in the history of our country. This election will decide whether we reward Kamala Harris with re-election and 4 more years of crime, economic calamity, and international humiliation, or whether we change that direction and once again build the greatest economy in the history of the world, which we had during the Trump administration. Kamala Harris is the first major party nominee in American history who fundamentally rejects freedom and embraces Marxism, communism, and fascism. You're learning about this. You'll find out nobody knew who she was. Just a few months ago, they didn't know who she was. She is promising communist price controls, wealth confiscation, energy annihilation, reparations, the largest tax increase ever imposed, and mass amnesty and citizenship for tens of millions of migrants who will consume trillions of dollars in federal benefits and destroy Social Security and Medicare. They will be destroyed. They're already putting them into your Social Security and Medicare rolls. I am promising low taxes, low regulations, low energy costs, low interest rates, secure borders, low crime, and surging incomes for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. My plan will rapidly defeat inflation, quickly bring down prices, and reignite explosive economic growth. Kamala Harris will take more money out of American pockets. My plan will leave the typical family with many thousands of dollars more than they have right now. First, I will end Kamala Harris's anti-energy crusade and implement a policy of energy abundance, energy independence, and even energy dominance. We have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country, including Russia and Saudi Arabia. We'll be using it. My plan will cut energy prices in half or more than that within 12 months of taking office. It will be an economic revival of our country like no one has ever seen before. Energy was what caused our problem initially. Energy is going to bring us back. That means we're going down and getting gasoline below $2 a gallon, bring down the price of everything from electricity rates to groceries, airfares, and housing costs. That's why OPEC and the Arab nations, and we're very honored to have some of my friends here with us today from that part of the world, but they're working very hard despite being here, that I not be your president. They don't like me. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris can't bring down the price of anything because her energy policies are driving up the cost of everything. Everything is up, way up. Starting on day one, Harris and Biden opened up the Russian pipeline called Nord Stream 2, which nobody have ever heard of until I got involved and said, what about Nord Stream 2? And nobody knew what I was talking about. Largest pipeline in the world, Russian pipeline. But I had it closed. It was shut down. Putin was not happy. We shut it down. They came along, and the Keystone XL pipeline was shut down by them. So they shut down the Keystone, and they immediately gave Russia the right to start rebuilding the Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline you've ever seen. We re-entered the horribly unfair to the United States through them when they came back. Paris Climate Accord, so unfair to us. We pay trillions of dollars. Other countries pay nothing. As soon as he came back, he went back into it. I got us out of it and reduced the area of the federal lands available for drilling by 80%. I did that. If I was president, oil production today would be 4 times higher than it is right now. Would have been 4 times higher. Right now, we'd be doing 4 times as much. And remember, we had ANWR, perhaps the largest drilling site in the world in Alaska, which everybody wanted to get approved, but they weren't able to do it. Ronald Reagan fought so hard to get ANWR. He couldn't do it. And it was easier in those days than it is today with all of the environmental concerns. But they came in their first few days in office, they terminated ANWR, amazingly. Biggest drilling site, we think, in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Texas. We got it, and they terminated it. Under the EPA's so-called power plant rule, more than 50 power plants have been shut down since she took office, and virtually all coal-fired power plants will be shuttered in the next couple of years, setting the stage for a catastrophic energy shortfall, which we already have, that will make inflation far worse than it has ever been. They want to close down our power plants, and we don't have power already to address this dire energy crisis that Kamala and Joe have created. I will immediately issue a national emergency declaration to achieve massive increase in domestic energy supply. What you're going to need. Electricity is desperately needed for AI. AI, controversial, but we got to be the top of it. And we would need, hard to believe, twice the electricity that we currently have right now for everything in order to be dominant. And China is already building massive electricity producing plants. We haven't even thought about it. We will think about it, and I'll get it done on an emergency basis. So we'll be the leader in AI and every other form of technology. With these sweeping authorities, we will blast through every bureaucratic hurdle to issue rapid approvals for new drilling, new pipelines, new refineries, new power plants, new electric plants, and reactors of all types. Prices will fall immediately in anticipation of this tremendous supply that we can create rather quickly, and we'll be the leader instead of the laggard. Second, to further defeat inflation, my plan will terminate the Green New Deal, which I call the Green New Scam, greatest scam in history probably, a $10 trillion scam that we waste, we throw like throwing money right out the window. It actually sets us back as opposed to moves us forward. And rescind all unspent funds under the misnamed Inflation Reduction Act, which the Democrats agreed after it was approved that it wasn't for that purpose, it was for other purposes like giveaways. Kamala spent $7.5 billion to build 8 charging stations. Think of a charging station like a fuel pump with electricity coming out of it. 8 charging stations in the Midwest for electric vehicles cost billions and billions of dollars. 7.5 billion, they think, but the costs are still going, and 3 of them don't work and never will, probably. Other than that, it's worked out quite well. I will end the electric vehicle mandate, stop the appalling waste, and save taxpayers an estimated $1 trillion. Third, I will launch a historic campaign to liberate our economy from crippling regulation. My first term, I pledged to cut 2 old regulations for every 1 new regulation, and we did much better than that, as I've said. Yet over the past 4 years, Kamala has added $6,300 a year in regulatory costs onto the backs of the typical American family. Think of that. To stop this onslaught and lower prices, I'm pledging today that in my second term, we will eliminate a minimum of 10 old regulations for every 1 new regulation. We'll be able to do that quite easily, actually. And instead of attacking industries of the future, we will embrace them, including making America the world capital for crypto and Bitcoin. Fourth, at the suggestion of Elon Musk, who has given me his complete and total endorsement. That's nice, 'cause he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. It's very, very much appreciated. I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now. And Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force. Be interesting. If he has the time, that'd be a good one to do it. But he's agreed to do it. In 2022, fraud and improper payments alone cost taxpayers an estimated hundreds of billions of dollars. As the first order of business, this commission will develop an action plan to totally eliminate fraud and improper payments within 6 months. This will save trillions of dollars, trillions. It's massive. For the same service that you have right now, trillions of dollars is wasted and gone, and nobody knows where it went. Further taming inflation and bringing prices way down. The fifth pillar of my plan is to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. They are massive tax cuts, biggest ever, permanent. And to cut taxes even more, and we will have no tax on tips, something which they copied 4 weeks after I said it. She got up and said, no tax on tips. I said, I just said that. She is actually copying a lot of my plan. In fact, we're going to send her a MAGA cap sometime in the next week. We're having a special one made. But we also know she doesn't mean it. She's going to stick with what her whole life has been about. And also, no tax on Social Security benefits. People on Social Security have been wiped out by inflation, and now on top of it, we tax their benefits. We're not going to tax their benefits. We have so many different ways of making so much money. This country, the potential is so incredible. We don't have to take it away from people on Social Security. We're not going to do that. We're going to save Social Security. She's going to destroy Social Security. Under the Trump administration, we proved that targeted tax cuts do not increase the deficit. They reduce the deficit by growing the economy and raising revenue. After we gave the massive tax cuts, we took in the following year with a much lower rate, billions and billions of dollars more than we did the previous year with a high rate. Think of that. So with a much lower rate, we took in more money because people were incentivized. Corporate tax revenues are 31% higher today than before my tax law was signed. With all of those cuts, 31% higher. To further support the revival of American manufacturing, my plan calls for expanded R&D tax credits, 100% bonus depreciation, expensing for new manufacturing investments, and a reduction in the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15% solely for companies that make their product in America. You have to make your product in America. If you outsource, offshore, or replace American workers, you're not eligible for any of these benefits. In fact, you will pay a very substantial tariff when a product comes in from another country that's made in another country and comes in. There'll be a big tariff on that product because we want to make our goods in America, and most of them we can. My message is simple. Make your product here in America, and only in America. We are not going to be taken advantage of anymore, just as we made great inroads and progress 4 years ago. We made tremendous inroads on this subject. We're not going to watch our wealth and jobs get ripped away from us and sent to foreign countries, which is what's been happening for many, many decades with us. China was built on doing exactly what we're going to be doing and what I started doing 4 years ago. What we're putting forward is the most pro-American manufacturing and jobs policy in modern history for any country. This plan will bring jobs and growth into our country at levels never seen before. Every business on earth will flock to America from Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and all over the world. By contrast, Comrade Kamala Harris wants to sacrifice our wealth, kill the economy, and drive jobs overseas to punish businesses more. Businesses will leave. They'll leave America. They're international companies. They report to their shareholders, and they will leave America if her plan, even in a small form, comes to the fore. Her tax plan, which includes the promise to end the Trump tax cuts, which again by itself would be a massive tax increase, would increase taxes by over $5 trillion, a record many times over. It would result in the largest small business tax hike in history, massively raising taxes on 25 million small business people and raising small business tax rates to 43% and higher. In other words, 20% higher than communist China. Kamala is also vowing to raise the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. We're bringing it down to 15%. But she really is looking to raise it to 40, 45, or even 50%. You know that. All you have to do is follow her past path. Radically raise the capital gains tax rate, which she wants to do, and they don't even want to give a number. And for the first time ever, impose a 25% tax on unrealized capital gains. So if you happen to have a lot of wealth but no cash, you're in a lot of trouble. This will lead America into a 1929 depression, and it will be a depression and a territory that we have not seen for a long time. There's a gentleman that happens to believe that, Scott. These policies, especially the tax on unrealized capital gains, would decimate the U.S. economy. Companies and innovation would flee from America to other countries. Venture capital markets would disappear, the stock market would be annihilated, and investors assess the tax liabilities of large shareholders, the seniors and senior pensions would totally go up in smoke. They'd be worthless. These are not the policies designed to create a prosperous America. These are policies to turn the United States into Venezuela on steroids. Even if for this reason alone, Kamala Harris must be defeated decisively this November. Has to be defeated. We cannot have her be the President of the United States. Under Kamala, the United States is becoming a third world banana republic. She and her party are censoring speech, weaponizing the justice system, and trying to throw their political opponents, me, in jail. This hasn't happened. I didn't do that to Crooked Hillary. I said that would be a terrible thing, wouldn't it? Putting the wife of the President of the United States in jail. But they view it differently, I guess, nowadays, but that's okay. And they always have to remember that two can play the game. Nobody ever thought this was possible. This is how you create massive capital flight and turn once prosperous nations into absolute ruins. I will have no higher priority as president than to restore the fair, equal, and impartial rule of law in America. We have lost the rule of law. Who would have thought? Number 6, under my leadership, America will encourage domestic production instead of punishing it. As you know, our country's vast manufacturing wealth was created at a time with very little domestic taxation, few regulations, and most revenue came from tariffs from other countries. That was when we were at the wealthiest ever, proportionately. We were the wealthiest country ever during those days. That was before income tax came along. Now we foolishly do the opposite. We impose lower tariffs and no tariffs on foreign producers. We have the lowest tariffs of any nation in the world, and we relentlessly punish our own companies for doing business in America. You do business in America, you're punished tremendously. I had many, many companies come to me, sir, I can't compete. They're sending kitchen cabinets, washers and dryers, everything. I can tell you, every motorcycles, they're sending them here, sir. We can't compete. And I made it so they could compete and thrive. Every one of those people, we should get them up and talk to you one day, because every one of those people comes up to me, and every time I see them, they hug me, they kiss me, they love me, because I saved their businesses. I intend to reverse this model and once again turn America into the manufacturing superpower of the world. We can do that just with being intelligent. The key to this effort will be a pro-American trade policy that uses tariffs to encourage production here and bring trillions and trillions of dollars back home. And you know what? We deserve it. We've been helping other countries get rich at our expense. For the last 50 years, we've been pouring our money into other countries, getting nothing for it. We protect them militarily. We do so much for them. We get nothing. My plan is that if you open your factory in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, anywhere else in our country, you don't pay a tariff tax. You don't pay a tax. You can make the product here. But if you move your production outside of the United States and send it back here, which people are doing now, and I stopped it cold, but they've changed that already, then you'll have to pay a very substantial tariff to get your product back into the country. The result will be that everybody in the world will want to be here, and they want to produce here. They're going to want to produce their product in America. It's going to say made in the USA. We will be able to build ships again. We will be able to build planes again. We will be able to build our military again from within, all from within. We will create the biggest, greatest, and strongest middle class in the history of our country. We will have tens of millions of high-paying jobs in manufacturing, transportation, defense, as well as all of the sales and support of export jobs. Our auto industry will be the biggest beneficiary. In short, it will be a national economic renaissance just by using our heads, by being smart, by not letting other countries take advantage of us. They've been doing it for so long. It's so sad to see. And I know them all, and they laugh at us behind our back. They can't believe how stupid our leadership has been for so many years. We will ensure that the United States has a giant steel industry, an aluminum industry, a manufacturing base, and a defense base. We want an industrial base that can take care of our defense needs 100%. And you can call it what you want. Some might say it's economic nationalism. I call it common sense. I call it America first. This is the policy that built this country, and this is the policy that will save our country. In the words of a great but highly underrated president, William McKinley, highly underrated, the protective tariff policy of the Republicans has been made and made the lives of our countrymen sweeter and brighter. It's the best for our citizenship and our civilization, and it opens up a higher and better destiny for our people. We have to take care of our own nation and her industries first. In other words, take care of our country first. This is when we had our greatest wealth. He was assassinated, and he left his group of people that followed him. Teddy Roosevelt became a great president, spending the money that was made by McKinley. So McKinley got a bad deal on that one. He built tremendous wealth. They had the Tariff Act of 1887, and they had a committee that studied, what are we going to do? They had a big problem, a problem like I hope to have with this country someday. So much money was coming in from foreign countries that they didn't know how to spend it. They had no idea. So they set up a committee. We'll set one up with the people in this room. How do we distribute the wealth that we have? And Roosevelt built dams and built railroads and did national parks. But he did it with the money that was made with tariffs from McKinley. So you have to remember that. Very highly underrated, a very underrated president. Let's give them both credit. Smart tariffs will not create inflation. They will combat inflation. I had almost no inflation, and I had the highest tariffs that anyone's seen, and they were going a lot higher. Foreign nations will pay us hundreds of billions of dollars, reducing the deficit and driving inflation down. It'll largely reduce our deficit. In my first term, we imposed historic tariffs with no effect on consumer prices or inflation. The anti-tariff people, many of them, I believe, honestly work for these other countries in some form, get tremendous amounts of lobbying money and other money because it doesn't make sense what they're saying. But we had no inflation, and we had protection, and I saved so many industries. I saved the steel industry. But Biden and Harris are letting it go. They're letting it go. It's so easy to keep. A combination of fair trade, tax cuts, regulatory cuts, and energy abundance will allow us to produce more goods better and cheaper right here in the USA than we've ever done before. And foreign nations will respect us again. I got along great with foreign nations, and I taxed the hell out of them. And they liked me. Maybe they respected me. And Viktor Orban, a very strong man, he's the Prime Minister of Hungary. He said the only thing missing from the world right now is President Trump. He kept the world safe because everybody was afraid of him. I don't like that term, but that's the term he used. I would like to say respected him and respected our country, but he didn't say that. He said everybody was afraid of him. He said China was afraid, Russia was afraid, they were all afraid. Kim Jong-un, I got along great with him. And I try to explain to the fake news media that getting along with people, foreign countries, is a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a very good thing. It's a smart thing. We will require all essential materials for our national security to be produced here in the United States, creating millions and millions of new manufacturing jobs. You know, when we built the F-35, we have the wings built in one country. We have the tail, rudders, built in another country. We have the seats built in another country. We have the electronics built in 7 different countries. What the hell would we do if there's a war? And we'll end up fighting half of those countries, and we don't want to have a war, because right now we're closer to World War III than we've ever been in our lives. With Russia, Ukraine, which would have never happened if I was president. With October 7th in Israel, the whole Middle East is blowing up. Would have never happened. They would have never happened. Respectfully, Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. It wouldn't have happened. There would be peace in the Middle East, and Iran would be a big beneficiary of that peace. It'd be good. But all of these things that happened, and inflation would have never happened, and Afghanistan would have never happened. The worst withdrawal in history, I believe the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. In fact, that's what caused President Putin to go into Ukraine. When he looked at how incompetently that was handled, he looked at it and he said, man, they're incompetent. That was the most embarrassing day in the history of the United States of America. Airplanes taking off with many people sitting on the wings of the plane and the side of the plane and the wing, and you see them dropping off the planes at 3,000 feet. They thought it was their trip to freedom. There's never been anything like that, and I think there's no greater embarrassment. By the way, we lost 13 incredible soldiers. I got to know the families very well. Spent a lot of time with them 4 days ago in Arlington Cemetery. 3 years ago, they were celebrating 3 years, honoring their children. And yeah, that's right, they call them their children. They still call them, they always will call them their children. They're gone. And many of those people there should have never left from there. They should have left from Bagram, the big air base. But many of those people that were so badly hurt, they don't talk about them. No legs, no arms, obliteration of their face, their entire body, and nobody mentions that. We left Americans behind, large numbers. We left $85 billion worth of equipment behind because we took our military out first. A child would know you don't. You take your military out last. And just remember one final point on that, because it's a little bit different from our subject, but not really, because it's all about our country and common sense. But for 18 months, I spoke to the leader of the Taliban. The press was very upset that I spoke to him. His name is Abdul. I said, Abdul, don't do this, Abdul. Don't do this. But why, he said, do you send me a picture of my home? I said, Abdul, you're going to have to figure that one out for yourself. But don't do this, Abdul, because it's going to end badly for you. And for 18 months, we didn't have one soldier shot at or killed in Afghanistan. And then we took our soldiers out. We had a very, very disgraceful election. And this group came in, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing, and they still don't. They've gotten worse. You know, with experience, you're supposed to get better. They got worse. They're worse now than they ever were. And we're going to turn our country around. We're going to become a major producer of rare earth minerals. We're going to create jobs and making it really, and us, truly self-reliant. Remember the rare earth, where we have to go to China. We have sites that are tied up with more than anybody else has. They're environmentally protected. We have sites that are phenomenal, everything you want in terms of rare earth, and we can't use them because of environmental protection. But we're going to end that very quickly as soon as I get to office. We will make housing much more affordable. As inflation is tamed, interest rates will dramatically fall. They'll be down very, very low. We'll get them down. We had them down to 2.4% and even lower than that for a period of time. Reducing mortgage rates is a big factor. We're going to get them back down to, we think, 3%, maybe even lower than that, saving the average home buyer thousands of dollars per year. They can now go out. Young people will be able to buy a home again and be a part of the American dream. We will eliminate regulations that drive up housing costs with the goal of cutting the cost of a new home in half. We think we can do that. The regulations alone cost 30%. Regulation costs 30% of a new home. And we will open up portions of federal land for large-scale housing construction. These zones will be ultra-low tax and ultra-low regulation. One of the great, really small business job creation programs it will be of all time. We're going to open up our country to building homes inexpensively so young people and other people can buy homes. You can't buy them anymore. Millions of Americans will take part in setting these safe and beautiful communities, reviving the frontier spirit, and really, as I said, reviving the American dream. It's about the American dream. It's all about the American dream. We don't talk about American dream with these people in office. They don't want to talk about the American dream because they're the exact opposite. They're the exact opposite. We also cannot ignore the impact that the flood of 21 million illegal aliens has had on driving up housing costs. That's why my plan will ban mortgages for illegal aliens in California. They're passing a law where they're going to give illegal aliens money to buy a house. But our soldiers, our veterans that are laying on the streets, they can't have them. You have soldiers right now laying on the streets of different cities, all Democrat run. They're laying on the streets in front of hotels, in some cases luxury hotels, and you have illegal immigrants coming in and living in those hotels and laughing at our soldiers as they walk by into a luxury lobby. Is there something wrong with that thinking? Is there something wrong with our country? If Kamala is allowed to continue to let our country be invaded, we will face a fiscal Armageddon. These migrants are consuming hundreds of billions of dollars in benefits. You saw in Colorado this week a group from Venezuela, rough ones. They took over large sections of a town, large sections of an area of Colorado, Aurora. Has anyone been there? I think you'd better stay away for a little while. They had AK-47s, the ultimate guns, AK-47s. They can blow lots of people away real fast. And the sheriff didn't want to touch him. Nobody wants to touch him. Sheriff, there's 18 Venezuelans attacking my building. Would you please come over and straighten out the situation? He's got a deputy. You know what they say? Well, no thanks, let's call in the military. They're taking over. And I said this 4 years ago when I realized they wanted open borders. And it's happened. It's happening now in Chicago. They're taking over sections of Chicago. What's happening in New York and Los Angeles and many other cities is not even describable. They're tough. They're tough and they're smart and they're vicious. Don't forget, they come from the prisons, and they're the bad criminals on the streets. Caracas, Venezuela, has almost no crime. Next year, I'm going to suggest that the Economic Club hold its meeting in Caracas because we'll be safer than we are in our country if they win. We'll be far safer. But crime in Venezuela is down 72% because they've taken all of their criminals off the streets. Not all of them. They still have some left, but they're coming in rapidly by bus and by plane. They're coming into our country, and we're dumping them in our country. And they say, if you come back, we will kill you. and they're not going back. We got them. But they're going back if I'm president, I guarantee you that. They're going back fast. And now Kamala wants to give them food stamps, housing assistance, welfare, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and destroy all of those programs. You will destroy those programs. That is why I will ask Congress to pass legislation barring all taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens. And by the way, when you do that, they won't come. They're coming now because they realize they've never seen wealth like this. They're getting things that they could never get. They're coming for that reason. If you stop that, you'll be dropping the flow by 80%. I think even more than that. They're coming because they're taken care of. Let's put them in a luxury. Let's put them in the Waldorf Astoria. That's a nice place. I will stop the invasion and send criminal illegal aliens back home. And when we do all of this, we will be so successful. We'll create America's own sovereign wealth fund to invest in great national endeavors for the benefit of all of the American people. Why don't we have a wealth fund? Other countries have wealth funds. We have nothing. We have nothing. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, or we can name it something different. I'll talk about it with Mr. Paulson, who's in the audience, and a lot of other friends of mine. And we'll name it something that's appropriate. Perhaps sovereign wealth fund wouldn't be appropriate, but it's going to be the same thing. We'll put tremendous amounts of money through all this money that will be taken in through tariffs and other intelligent things, and we'll have the greatest sovereign wealth fund of them all, and we should have, and that will be used to do things that will be great for our country, including to invest and wisely invest and build it up bigger and stronger and better than any place on earth. We will build extraordinary national development projects and everything from highways to airports and to transportation, infrastructure, all of the future. We'll be able to invest in state-of-the-art manufacturing hubs, advanced defense capabilities, cutting-edge medical research, and help save billions of dollars in preventing disease in the first place. And I'm very honored to have been endorsed last week by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That was a great endorsement, and he's very much into helping people. He's very much into helping people. I've known him a long time. That was a great thing when he did that. That was not easy for a Kennedy to be endorsing a Republican. That was not easy. But these are not Democrats. These are radical left lunatics, and you can't let them run your country. We will invest in new and modern agricultural techniques so we can have safe, healthy, high-quality foods for our families. That's where Bobby is so interested, foods. He says we're putting a lot of bad foods in our body. You look at other countries which do far less, and they're actually much healthier than we are. This wealth fund will return a gigantic profit which will help pay down national debt. We're going to work on national debt very strongly, by the way. We're going to have so much money coming in. We're going to work on national debt. We're close to $36 trillion right now. We're going to work on getting it down. And it is many of the people in this room who will be helping to advise and recommend investments for this fund. This is how we will end the era of inflation, mayhem, and misery under Kamala Harris, the worst vice president in the history of our country, and unleash a new era of safety, prosperity, and success for our workers, our families, and our businesses. And I've done it before. We did a great job, and now we really know our job well. I know the smartest, the best people. We have the best people. We have people that, many in this room, they know exactly what we want to do. You know, it's interesting having experience, because I won an election. I went to Washington. I was only in Washington 17 times. I never stayed over. That's according to the fake news, but I think they're right. But I got to know Washington well. And I know the smart ones and the dumb ones. I know the ones that can help make us great and the ones that can only take us into bad territory. I got to know a lot of people, probably as many as anybody at that level. And we have incredible talent, and we're going to be using that talent. We had some incredible talent, much of it sitting up here and sitting down here. They did a great job on trade. Bob Lighthizer, so many of the people did such a great job. We rebuilt our military. We rebuilt our entire military, did a great job. We have great generals, not the television generals, not the generals that took us out of Afghanistan in 24 hours and left that horrible situation, but we have great generals. We defeated ISIS. It was supposed to take 5 years. It took me 4 weeks. 4 weeks. Our generals did a great job. We have great people in our military, and our military is not woke. Believe me, you couldn't get these guys to be woke. Some of the guys on top are woke, but those aren't the ones that are great. So we're going to do things that we didn't do even the first time. We had a great presidency. There was an article written the other day that the Trump presidency was a great presidency. With victory on November 5th, which will go down as the most important day in the history of our country, inflation will be gone, our energy will be unleashed, our economy will be set free, our sovereignty will be restored, our citizens will thrive, growth will come roaring back, and America's future will be brighter than ever before. So I want to thank you all. This has been a lovely experience. It was years ago that I was here. We talked about what we were going to do, and we did just about everything we said. And if you'd like, we'll take a few questions, Bob.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Trump.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we're now moving, as promised, to the question and answer portion of the program. Our 4 very able questioners today are H. Rajan Cohen, the Senior Chair of Sullivan & Cromwell, Sandra Gerber, Founding and Managing Partner, CEO and CIO of Hudson Bay Capital, Mr. John Paulson, founder of Paulson & Company, and Rashma Sanjani, founder and CEO of Girls Who Code and Moms First. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and therefore, Raj, you have the first question.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I would like to ask about the United States economic sanctions programs. These programs have been used, as you well know, to advance our national security interests, our foreign policy objectives, but they also have economic implications. And the most recent was the program against Russia in response to the their invasion of Ukraine, where for once we got the support of all our allies. So my specific question is, would you strengthen or modify any of these economic sanctions programs, particularly Russia, including the pipeline you mentioned?
Well, it's a great question. The problem with what we have with sanctions, and I was a user of sanctions, but I put them on and take them off as quickly as possible because ultimately it kills your dollar and it kills everything the dollar represents, and we have to continue to have that be the world currency. I think it's important. I think it would be losing a war. If we lost the dollar as the world currency, I think that would be the equivalent of losing a war. That would make us a third world country, and we can't let it happen. So I use sanctions very powerfully against countries that deserve it, and then I take them off. Because look, you're losing Iran, you're losing Russia. China is out there trying to get their currency to be the dominant currency, as you know better than anybody. All of these things are happening. You're losing so many countries because there's so much conflict with all of these countries that you're going to lose that, and we can't lose that. So I want to use sanctions as little as possible. One of the things that we have with tariffs is that I'll say to them, you don't honor the dollar as your world currency. Is that right? You're not going to do it? No, we're not. I said, that's okay. I'm going to put tariffs all over your product. And they're going to say, sir, we'd love to honor the dollar as the world currency. You know, tariffs, in addition to monetary and the money that we'll take in, which will be bigger than you've ever seen in this country before, gives you tremendous political power for something like that, as an example. I stopped wars with the threat of tariffs. I stopped wars with 2 countries that mattered a lot. A lot of people would have been killed. And I threatened tariffs coming into the United States if they don't make peace. And we made we didn't have conflicts like you have right now. We had very intelligent people. But the biggest threat you have is you lose that currency, and we have lost something that you'll never get back. And we can keep it if we're smart, but they use it too much, and then they just forget about it. And these countries like Russia, it's going out now and doing its own thing, and you know, they're going out bragging about how they don't need us anymore, et cetera, et cetera. The sad part about Russia is that Ukraine would have never happened if I was president, so we wouldn't really have to be talking about sanctions. But it did happen. And one of the things I'm going to do, a little bit relevant to your question, is if we win, I believe I can settle that war while I'm president-elect. Before I ever get into office, I can get that war settled and get that war stopped, because it's a horrible, horrible war. And far more people are killed in Ukraine, far more people than you're realizing. They'll knock down this massive building, amazing, the size of these buildings, they'll knock it down, they'll say nobody was injured. No, a lot of people were killed. The real numbers are far greater than what people are looking at. So I think it's a very important thing. Sanctions have to be used very judiciously, and you can win. We have things much more powerful, actually, than sanctions. We have trade, but we cannot lose our dollar standard. Very important. Thank you very much.
Great. Sander?
Thank you, Mr. President, for all the details on your economic policy. As you alluded to, tariffs are the other side of sanctions. And given that China is our major trading partner with our largest imbalance and possibly our chief national security threat to the United States, how can we better institutionalize trade policy and national security policy to be coordinated?
So I had a great relationship with President Xi of China, really very close relationship. Now look, he likes China, I like us, so. But I don't want to sound foolish. He was my dear, dear friend. He's a tough guy. He's a fierce person. I say very smart. You know, when you say he's smart, the fake news goes crazy. He said President Xi is smart. And I say, yeah, well, he controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. He's smart. But we had a very good relationship with China until COVID. And when that came in, it was a whole different ballgame as far as I was concerned. You know, we made a great China trade deal, maybe better than the USMCA, and I'd never talk about it because what happened with COVID for the whole world, $60 trillion and, you know, deaths, 70 million, 60, nobody even knows how many deaths. And it all came out of Wuhan, so it changed my relationship. But I think I'll have a great relationship with China. I had one before. And they respected us, but they respected us because they no longer thought we were fools. They used to think we were fools because we built China. They would take over $500 billion a year and use it for their military and other things. And we got nothing out of that. We got some cheap product. You can buy 19 pencils instead of 2. Who the hell cares? You can buy 16 dolls for your daughter instead of 2 nice dolls. And we got very little out of that relationship. They got a tremendous military power, and they still have it today. So, but I believe we will have a very good relationship with China and with a lot of other countries that we're not getting along with too well today. And things are going to straighten out. We're going to get them straightened out very quickly. Very important that we get along with the rest of the world. You know, we have things today called nuclear weapons. I rebuilt our whole military, including our nuclear capability. And so I got very familiar with it. And, you know, I say this often because I had an uncle who was the longest serving, I believe the longest serving, I was told that by MIT, but he was there 39, I guess, or 41 years, longest serving professor in the history of MIT, and nuclear was something he knew a lot about. And we used to talk about it. I'd say, Uncle John, there's no way. He was telling me about this incredible power that was being unleashed potentially. And I say, Uncle John, you could never. And you know what? He was very modest because I've seen the destructive capability. And this world is going to have to get along because if that's ever unleashed, we already have too many countries that have at least remnants of it, some of it. but probably 5 countries if you think. And Kim Jong-un, when I went to the White House after winning in 2016, I sat with President Obama, which is a ritual. And you sit and you talk. And I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea is the biggest problem. I don't think it's solvable. I said, have you tried calling him or talking to him? And actually, the answer was yes, and he wasn't responded to. But I did, and we were very safe. It started off a little rocky, if you remember. Little Rocket Man, I called him, and he called me things too. He's got a red button on his desk. I said, I have a bigger red button, and my red button works. I said, and then it started getting a little nicer, and then one day I got a call that they'd like to meet, and it was a great thing. We had a great meeting. We had 2 meetings, actually 2 great meetings, summits, and we had no problem with them. Now they have a problem because they're not liking this administration. They don't respect this administration at all. So we have to get along. We have to get along. We can't have World War III. You're going to end up in World War III. Just like you should have never had Russia go in. It would have never happened if a competent person led us. It would have never happened. He led them into it. And I'm not blaming Biden. But you know what? What he was saying was exactly the wrong thing. I said, we're going to have an invasion because of a lot of the rhetoric. It was stupid rhetoric. But it would have never happened, not only for that reason. Oil was down low. You know, oil was almost at $100 a barrel. So Putin is one of the only people. I mean, nothing's easy in life. But Putin at $100 a barrel, war works. At $40 a barrel, it didn't work at all. So we're going to get back to a intelligently run place, a place where other countries aren't using the word nuclear. That word was never talked about because I knew the power of it. And I talked to Putin about it. I talked to President Xi about it. I think we were going to do, you remember the talk where we were going to reduce nuclear capability substantially. All 3 of us, we're going to start it. We're going to reduce very substantially. And then we had the election, and after the election, they didn't talk about that or anything else, frankly. But we have to be very, very careful because the destructive capability of nuclear, when people talk about global warming, I say the ocean is going to go down 1/100th of an inch within the next 400 years. That's not our problem. Our problem is nuclear warming, and we better be smart, and we better have smart people at the top that know how to deal, because these people don't know how to deal. Putin came out today, he endorsed Kamala, and I didn't know, was I supposed to call him up and say, thank you very much, I appreciate it. But he endorsed Kamala. I have a feeling, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to say about that. I don't know if I'm insulted or he did me a favor. But we have to get along with the world. We can't have war because the destructive capability, you can be the head of the biggest bank wherever the hell Jamie is sitting. You can be the head of the biggest bank in the world, and a couple of nukes in your bank doesn't mean a thing. You gotta get along. This is such an important job. It's a dangerous job too. Very dangerous job. If you look at statistically, being president is very dangerous. That throbbing feeling I have. Oh, that throbbing feeling. No, it's a very dangerous job, and you have to do it right. And if you don't do it right, bad things will happen to the world. Things like you've never seen before. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Paulson behind me to your right, Mr. President.
Hi, John.
First, let me thank you for your presentation today. President Trump, in the last fiscal year, the fiscal deficit under the Biden administration was approximately $2 trillion. Under the policies you've announced, the deficit would come down from items such as increased revenues from tariffs, as well as eliminating the tax incentives for the Green New Deal. These gains would be mitigated by decreases in revenues from policies such as no tax on tips. Overall, what do you estimate will be the impact of the fiscal deficit from your policies?
Well, we just hit record highs at numbers that nobody ever thought possible. You're right, it's over $2 trillion. Nobody thought that was a number that was, I mean, you could go back 4 years, nobody thought a number like that would be possible. It's crazy, it's like, it's just horrible, actually. But yeah, we're $2 trillion, and I view it as profit and loss to a certain extent. A lot of people say, oh, it's trade. You know, you have many people say trade deficits don't matter. I think they matter a lot. I think they matter a lot. We're going to have tremendous growth. What I'm talking about is all about growth. The tax is relatively minor compared to the growth. We're going to make our money back on growth. We're going to also, I mean, we're going to grow like nobody's ever grown before. I think if this all works out, you're going to have the auto industry come back to America. Right now, China is building 2 auto factories in Mexico, massive auto factories. And they think they're going to make their cars in Mexico and send them back into the United States with no tax. It's not going to happen. Under this administration, it's going to happen. And they wanted to do that during my administration. I said, if you do it, we're going to put a 200% tariff on every car, and you'll never be able to see it. There will never be one car coming across our border. And if I would have let them do it, we would have had these 2 factories. Well, now they're building massive factories, more than 2, and they're going to kill Detroit. And the head of the union, the United Auto Workers in Detroit, has done a terrible, terrible job, just a terrible job. But we're going to bring tremendous growth back. And remember, we're also taking in a certain percentage. I won't name the percentage today, but it'll be a certain tariff percentage, which will be higher than people had heard in the past. And we will be bringing in billions and billions of dollars, which will directly reduce our deficits. Okay? Thank you very much. Good job you've done, by the way. Very good.
Thank you. And the final question, Resma, is to you.
Thank you. President Trump, you talked about how the increase in the price of food, gas, and rent is hurting families. But the real cost that's breaking families' backs and preventing women from participating in the workforce is childcare. Childcare is now more expensive than rent for working families and is costing the economy more than $122 billion a year, making it one of the most urgent economic issues that is facing our country. In fact, the cost of childcare is outpacing the cost of inflation, with the majority of American families of young children spending more than 20% of their income on childcare. One thing that Democrats and Republicans have in common is that both parties talk a lot about what they're going to do to address the childcare crisis, but neither party has delivered meaningful change. If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trump. It's great that you accepted our invitation to be with us today. Thank you, Raj, Sander, John, and Reshma, for your questions. The president is now going to be leaving the building, and so we want to all stay seated while he and his team leave. But as he leaves, let's all say thank you one more time for him accepting our invitation to be here today.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Thank you. It's a great honor.
Thank you all also to all our guests and members who are here today. Please be seated. I also want to fill you in that we have a very robust...
President Trump speaking for about an hour to the Economic Club of New York. And then, Bobby, taking some questions there. Always good to see a Q&A after a speech, Bobby.
And this is an interesting group because you have the power players on Wall Street, big business owners, some small business owners in the room as well, the movers and shakers, those paying close attention to policy items and just how bad the economy has been under Biden and Harris, and some of those scary points, capital gains skyrocketing under this administration and how they would skyrocket even more under Kamala Harris, and President Trump highlighting this. This is liberty versus tyranny, capitalism versus communism. Great to see some pointed, strong policy questions, especially that last one on childcare and how President Trump would handle that as the 47th president.
President Trump saying, quote, "Communism is the past, freedom is the future." We'll have some more closing thoughts here for today's broadcast in just a minute, but before we do have to thank the Birch Gold Group. All you have to do is text Trump to 989898 for more information. Always good with knowing to have the gold, silver, and precious metals as a backup. I do want to show you the coin here. This is the silver coin as well, the Free Fight silver coin. All you have to do is get the product. With one product purchase, you get a free silver coin. Fight, fight, fight. A great product here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Absolutely, and what a way to have a piece of history with you right in your pocket or as a nice collectible. Text Trump to 989898 and financially secure yourself. That was what this speech was all about to the Economic Club in New York. We'd also like to thank the Wellness Group for the contagion emergency kits. Dr. Peter McCullough has done amazing research on mRNA, and he is the doctor who's watching out for you. So these contagion kits are packed with life-saving meds like ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, and antibiotics like Z-Pak, all packed by experts like that gentleman I mentioned, Dr. Peter McCullough. MakeCareGreatAgain.com, code RSBN for 15% off.
FreeTrumpBook.com, FreeTrumpBook.com. This is not only about President Trump, but it also has other topics in there. Pro-capitalist or pro-freedom topics as well. So you'll be able to see freetrumpbook.com. All you have to do is go to that website. You'll pay a little shipping and handling, and then you'll be able to get that book, freetrumpbook.com.
A great gift for right around the holidays and Christmas, especially for the young ones in your family, future voters, and maybe those neighbors not paying close enough attention to what's going on in the 2024 election. But we also like to thank our friends over at Tex Network USA. With over 14 years of experience, Tex Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion, yes, $1 billion in back taxes. No matter the size of your tax issue, their expertise is your advantage. So they specialize in negotiating with the IRS, aiming to significantly reduce your debt. Go to taxnetworkusa.com/RSBN or call 800-357-1415. Thousands of new agents been added during the Biden administration. Make sure you protect yourself from a bloated bureaucratic state. Visit our friends at Tax Network USA.
From Tax Network, let's go over to mypillow.com. Of course, great products under Mike Lindell. The pillows, the sheets, the sliders, slippers, the dog beds. There's so many great products on there. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, use the promo code RSBN for a bunch of savings, as you see there on the right side of your screen there, 50% off for the mattress sale. Still ongoing right now. So mypillow.com/RSBN for quite the discount. And you can also type RSBN in there for a promo code, MyPillow. And then, of course, donate.
We'd love for you to donate, if you can, of course. These are hard economic times, but please visit rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. We're Right Side Broadcasting. We are your 2024 election headquarters, and we're committed to bringing you the most comprehensive coverage of President Donald J. Trump's campaign and so much more. So stay tuned for everything, because you don't want to miss a single moment. Speeches like this, the Economic Club of New York, or a rally, or even Turning Point USA events, and everything in between. We're covering from beginning to end all of President Trump's stops across the campaign trail. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter, and make sure to like, subscribe, and share all of our content on all the major platforms.
All right, so we know tomorrow in North Carolina, President Trump will be talking with a fraternal of police, order of police there in North Carolina. That speech is at 4 o'clock. Our coverage will be at 2 here Eastern. And then big day on Wednesday. Actually, I was thinking Wisconsin, not Wednesday. Saturday, Wisconsin, a huge rally going on. We'll have live coverage wall to wall from the people to the president. Always great to have that here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Before we go, I wanted to share, because today was about the economy, of course, that Harris is proposing the largest tax hike in American history, allowing the Trump tax to expire, capital gains tax to increase, and as you mentioned before, Bobby, the top income tax rate, the investment income, and also the corporate tax, all to increase. So we want Maganomics over Bidenomics and over a plan that the way left wing is trying to propose. And of course, how about keeping some of our how about all of our constitutional freedoms, of course, on the ballot coming up this election.
Right, and it makes sense because President Trump did this back when he was in office the first time. We had a corporate tax rate around 35%. He brought that down to 21%. He wants to further bring that down now. He made the pledge today to 15%, and that will only be good for the companies, well, all companies, but specifically targeting those companies that are making products here in America, bringing that corporate tax rate down for them as an incentive, manufacturing, steel, all of the energy industry coming back to America as it once was, the greatest exporter in the world. If we do that again, we'll make sure that we have a robust economy and a great country as a result for everyone. The Harris agenda, the complete opposite.
Exactly. So if you missed any of today's broadcast, well, if you're on Rumble or YouTube or anywhere else, really, you can scrub back and watch from the beginning. There were some great moments here with Bobby and I talking about a number of topics, but also there was the Trump boat parade just outside of Auburn, Alabama at Lake Martin. A great video there just showing the American people having a good time this past Labor Day weekend. And of course, programming note again, North Carolina tomorrow, President Trump speaks at 4 o'clock. We'll be here in the studio at 2 o'clock. For Bobby McNeely, myself, I'm Matthew Alvarez, and all of us at Right Side Broadcasting Network. America, we love you. We'll see you tomorrow.
You ask and we listen. We're finally bringing the most requested offer ever. Get the queen size premium MyPillow, now only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. It adjusts to your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position. It helps keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long so you get the best sleep of your life. But that's not all. Get our 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets only $25. Our brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98. Get our famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25 and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products, including the premium queen size MyPillow, only $19.98. That's the lowest price ever. Don't delay, order today. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
Hey y'all, is Silk from Diamond and Silk. Don't forget to catch the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show right here on RSBN. That's right, RSBN. Now that's Right Side Broadcasting Network. Okay? See y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Hi folks, RSBN founder and CEO Joe Seals here. Did you know there is nearly $1 trillion of infrastructure and pandemic funds yet to be spent? That's right, there's a massive amount of money that the lame duck administration is pushing hard to spend in their last few months. If the president is able to push these funds out, we could see another prolonged inflation surge, just like during COVID. And I'm sure you remember the terrible effects that high prices had on most Americans. But there's hope. A surge in prices can be beaten. A gold IRA from Birch Gold Group is the ultimate inflation hedge for your savings in uncertain times. To see how to protect your IRA or 401k, get your free info kit on gold by texting the word Trump to 989898. Birch Gold makes it seamless to roll over your retirement account while preserving your tax advantage status. Don't wait for the president's spending spree to tank the dollar further. Protect your financial future now. Text Trump to the number 989898 for your free info kit from Birch Gold.
Welcome to the Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're not like the other media outlets out there that cut and edit what other people say. In 2015, we were created by our founder, Joe Seals, to cover President Donald J. Trump's speeches and rallies, to which we continue to do to this day. We've also covered important conservative events like CPAC, TPUSA, March for Life, and many other important events and hearings around the country. We were made for people like you, everyday Americans who are tired of the mainstream media, who are tired of being lied to, manipulated, and fed an agenda. Our goal here at Right Side Broadcasting is to allow you to see the truth, giving our correspondents and commentators a wide latitude to speak their minds. You won't find anything like this in the mainstream media. Your support through your donations, locals, and supporting our advertisers allows us to continue to cover important events around the country each and every day. So, from us here at Right Side Broadcasting, thank you for supporting us and the right side of history.